Whoops.
Oh,
Here we are.
Already.
There we
go.
All right. I don't mistakenly press buttons.
There's so many buttons to press, and only one of them is correct. There are many more incorrect buttons than correct buttons to press in the world. That's something to be said. Why? Right. I don't know, but might as well start the show with that.
Start the show. We're going to press some more buttons right now, and see the segue
more
there, right?
Debugging. There's more debugging to do than bugging in the world. Yes.
Jump on to the next one. Okay, right. Let's see. Hang on a minute. Where's the button? There we go.
There we go.
Randall, do you want to do these?
Sure. Why not? So be nice. Be cool. Don't post anything if it's adult. Don't advertise or promote anything and spam things. That's just dumb. We'll take care of it by kicking you out or making you quiet. So don't do that. We do not tolerate harassment of any kind. This is a standard policy across the board. Pretty much everybody these days is saying that. But do have a good time. We have a good time. We love answering questions. We love answering your questions, your live questions, which you can put in the chat if you're watching the live show. And if you're not, why not? You should watch the live show. It's a lot more fun. If you put Q: in front of your question, I will notice it and put it into the queue. Ooh, there's that alliteration again, so that we all can answer it. Today's panel can take a whack at coming up with a proper answer to a proper question. How's that?
And
that work for you, Simon?
Yeah, it's wonderful. Let's quickly do some introductions, and then we'll get on with the show. So
cool.
My name's Simon Lightfoot, Flutter Community Leader, CTO of Dev Angels London, and you can follow me on Twitter at Dev Angels London. Randall.
I am Randall Schwartz. I am a full-time Flutter person. I code Flutter for a living, mostly a living anyway, it seems, off and on. And I'm also a Dart and Flutter Google developer expert, which means in theory, I have spent a lot more time dealing with a lot of stuff than many people have. I'm one of the 10 US Flutter experts, so it's kind of cool. And I'm also the question magician, which means that I am the one, as I just said, that I will be watching the chat, see what your questions are, and try to get it into our queue so that we can answer that for you.
And Scott can't join us today, but he'll be joining us another day. However, we do have some other experts and cool people with us. Let's bring them to the stage. John, welcome to the stage. You are muted.
How's it going? Yep, I clicked the button.
Had to happen. Had to happen.
How's it going?
Hi.
Good.
Hey, John. Good to have you back.
I was going to say, a lot of people already know who you are, but let's quickly introduce yourself and then.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm architect at Microsoft. I work with Flutter, doing lots of things for a long time now. My group is the group that basically handles Android work in Microsoft and does some OS level work. So
nice.
Yep.
And you're the person with the biggest Flutter sign so far.
Yes. Yeah. In my office, when we had an office where I'm located, I had a much bigger wall, so it didn't look quite as large. But in my home office here, it's a little bigger.
You know, if I sort of put, like, I'm not going to say the P word that is the normal way you do something like that. I put a giant one of the Flutter logos in Crater Lake here. That would be bigger than yours.
Yes.
At least in the way it looks. Yes.
I mean, no guess. Danielle. There we go.
Hey, everybody again. Glad to be here this week. I was not here last week, so I'm trying to be here most weeks. And I'm Danielle Cox. I'm a Flutter developer full-time. I'm not a GDE yet. I do plan on helping us get to 11 in the US.
Yay.
You know, and I know I'm not the only one, so I may have to settle for 12 or 13, but we're going to aim for it.
Yep. A small but elite team. Yes.
Exactly. And I run a team of Flutter developers, and we work on Flutter Web mainly. Actually, it's an app, but we're working mainly on Flutter Web. And I'm also one of the co-organizers of the Flutteristas. So if we have any female or non-binary Flutter enthusiasts out there that have not joined Flutteristas yet, hit me up, and I'll get you fast-tracked in. So that's who I am. So glad to be here.
And we all have our Twitter handles on the screens.
Yes.
So you can follow us if you want to, or message us and all that kind of fun stuff.
Exactly. I tell people I'm famous, or I'm almost famous. in the Flutter community.
Not only my Twitter handle, but my also fairly legal handle for almost everything else out in the real world too. So yes, made that the same.
Did anyone else notice that the Dart changelog now has Dart 3 in it?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Should we take a look at it?
Yes, please.
Sure. While people are still putting their questions in the queue, we can look at things.
Get your questions in the queue whilst we go through today's news. And this is quite interesting, actually. So let me. We should just start a show called QI, like quite interesting. Damn, there's already one.
It's been taken.
It's been taken. No. Let's see if we can get this up on the stream. That's it. And let's see if I can make that. There we go. It's a bit better. And make it bigger. So so there's a breaking change in the language. Apparently, let's get that thing off the screen. There we go.
Things you need to know as you migrate to Flutter or to Dart 3. Yes. Things you need to know.
Here's a question. So apparently there's a compile time error for continue with having an invalid target. So something that I don't use in fact I don't use in Dart is labels. So you can from C days you can put like a label on a line and then say continue or loop to this place, or direct people direct your loops and so on to these labels. So apparently there's a compile time issue with label not working.
But it looks kind of like it looks kind of like it should have been an error already. So
it's basically saying that if it was an invalid target, it didn't consider it a problem and still worked anyway. And then down here, apparently,
where did it continue to?
That was my question. If it was invalid, where did it
location
go?
somewhere?
I'm assuming it just did a normal continue, which just loops to the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Like that would be my call. What the default behavior would be, but instead of reporting as an error, it did. But it's kind of interesting here. Breakage is mitigated by changing the code to have a continue label with a proper target or valid label statement. It's like, correct your code. I guess it is a breaking change because it was not considered an issue before, right? So
right. I remember Perl has a continue and it's dynamically determined because it's that's Perl for everything. But you could have a continue in a statement, and then depending on what subroutine called it, you'd be continuing the named block in that subroutine. Right. Action at a real weird distance. Yes.
What else do we have here? Another breaking change: non-mixing classes in the platform libraries can no longer be mixed in unless they're explicitly marked as mixing class. So this is about the fact that now classes have what they called them
attributes
prefix
or something.
I can't remember what they called. Like, so you have
class attributes,
final class, all those kind of different things. And now there's a mixing class. So if you want to mix in, it has to be a mixing class rather than it being.
There's like 6 combinations of 6 different things to combine. And there's this giant chart of like 20 lines long of all the different ways to combine it and what it all means with all those combinations.
So it says here that the following classes have been made mixing classes, but this is interesting because apparently iterable mixin, iterable base, and now aliases for iterable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so am I thinking about that here now? The behavior is that iterable, because it's been labeled as a mixing class, it can now be used as a mixin. Mm-hmm. As well as
or a class,
or a normal class, right?
Yep.
Okay, interesting.
Right.
What else do we have? This is what I've wanted for years. I don't know why this has taken till Dart 3 to get this in there. Why have we not had bool.parse and bool.try-parse? Like int,
what
string,
do you consider?
Everything has these things. Like int double.
Is it the string true? Is it the string 1? Is it the string t? What is considered true by bool parse?
I mean, we could go take a look at.
We have to go look at the code.
We
and see
could
what they're
test
looking
it.
for.
Yeah. See, that's been part of the concern. Is having a canonical string representation for bools.
I mean,
right?
To be honest, I see that, but also it's like, because was it like? Is it Apple that does? No. What does Apple use? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Why?
Right.
No other platform
Well, and-
says yes and no.
There's some databases that use that as a, it's
Yeah.
0-1, but when you're in the UI, everything's yes and no,
but,
and
but that comes back to Objective C, 1980 something, with yes and no as being
Yeah.
I mean,
my backend API, they have a kind of a type they call an indicator, and it's yes or no, and so I always have to convert those to I have to convert them to a Boolean. So my JSON converter, I'm giving it an actual proper Boolean name, and then just converting it back and forth there. So we'll see if
now we could have thumbs up and thumbs down emojis for yes and no.
Oh God, no! Stop! Stop! No. I draw the line. Do you know how many bugs those emojis would cause in like
emoji parts?
Dealing with Unicode. Like, no.
Just gonna code everything with emojis. Yeah.
This is another one. Right. Like I've always basically datetime.timestamp gives you the UTC current time, right? Which is instead of having datetime.now.to UTC. It's just a little shortcut, I guess.
Nice.
It's nice, right? Like that's always something that we wanted.
Right.
Type of regex match pattern is now regex, not just a pattern. Because a pattern doesn't have all the features of a regex, right?
Right.
Because a string
pattern includes both regex and string.
Yes.
So the problem is if it returns a pattern, it's too loose. You then have to test it. Is it a regex or is it a pattern?
Yeah.
Or is it a string? I mean, which is easier to do with the pattern stuff that we're getting. But
looks like there's a bunch of deprecations that are now breaking changes because they've removed them. So list constructor
finally gone. Yes, finally.
List.field deprecation. Oh yeah, on error for int pass and double pass, because that was that was always one of those things.
And it never existed for bool parse. It was never there because this came in passing ships in the night. It's bool parse came in.
Well, this is interesting. They deprecate cast error and use type error instead. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Fall through errors have been deprecated. Oh, this was kind of like this. The kind of fall through previously thrown by this error is a compile time error. Oh, this was it. Null thrown error. This error is never thrown from null safe. I think I saw some errors in here that were like, these were never thrown for ages, so we've just now removed.
Yeah.
What it was. Compile time error.
Well, I mean, it's a breaking change.
I mean, this is it. Look,
in your code, even if you didn't do anything, I've been there.
Yeah, cyclic dependencies are no longer detected at runtime in null safe code, right? So null safe code will fail in other ways, like a Stack Overflow, which is interesting.
Yeah.
No such method error. Default constructor used with invocation name constructor instead. Sure. Bi-directional iterator. Sure. Breaking change when migrating code to Dart 3. Oh, this is interesting. The function type can no longer be implemented, extended, or mixed in. Since Dart 2.0, writing implements function has been allowed for backwards compatibility, but it has had no effect, right, basically. So it's been there, but it does nothing, right? Because every class can be callable, right? So in Dart 3, a function type is final and cannot be subtyped, preventing code from mistakenly assuming it works. This brings up two things. So this is great, right? Obviously, get rid of these things. It didn't do anything. Fine, get rid of it, right? However,
cleans up stuff.
It does. I do feel. I seem like every time I talk about these things, I seem to repeat this. But be cautious of using final classes, right? Because basically, it means that, especially if you're building a library, you just should not use them if you're building a library. I understand the framework for this instance. This is the correct choice, but be very cautious because basically you just limit the library's use. If suddenly I can't extend it as a developer, you can't extend the library or change it or implement the class yourself or do whatever you need to do to make it fit your problem space. Suddenly, what you've done is are you going to copy suddenly as a developer? You're going to copy that library's code into your app, or you going to? It just makes things so difficult as a developer, right? When you get like roadblocks in your way like that because someone just used an extra keyword, right? So as I say, as a library maintainer, you want to be careful of using the final keyword on non-variables, and this is on classes. There's new class.
What's interesting is that a fellow member of the same library can take a final class and unseal it and expose that to outside consumers. So there's now a annotation that you put. If you actually do that, you don't want to get a lint on it. There's an annotation that says this, I'm doing this really deliberately. And by the time you're doing that, you probably shouldn't have made the original one final in the first place. So yeah.
Here's some other ones. The following declarations can now only be implemented, not extended.
Yeah.
So like comparable, exception, iterator, pattern, so on. So like, for example, comparable, you normally implement a class, right? You don't extend it, right?
Yeah.
But that's kind of interesting, right? I don't know. I don't think it's going to break any changes. And that's because now they're interface classes, right? So now this is kind of brings around a difference in the way that Dart is used. So one of the things I liked about Dart from the beginning was that any class could be an interface, right?
Right.
Now that doesn't go away, as from my understanding, it doesn't go away with Dart 3. All we're saying is, you know, you have an interface keyword on the class, you say interface class, whatever, and it means it can only be used in implements. It cannot extend it as seen here. So, and again, yeah, as a library user, maybe you want to be cautious of using some of these things, right? I don't know.
There was a Stack Overflow. There was a Stack Overflow question in the last couple of days where someone either in their question or in part of their answer was prefacing some classes with I_this. Oh, it was a demo of clean coding. And the question was about, why are you doing that? And the answer was, because I want to know which of my classes are interface classes. And I said, just wait 6 months. This will all sort itself out. You'll know, because we'll be able to tag them. And they said, well, happy person of October 23, but I'm in April 23. And I go, okay, fine.
What else do we have here? The following declaration can only be implemented or extended. So I guess some of those base things that cannot be changed. Map entry, interesting. Okay. Finalizer, the map entry class is restricted to enable later optimizations. Okay. The remaining classes are tightly coupled to the platform not intended. I can see it for the rest of them. So map entry. What else we got here? Async. An extension member waits on iterables and 2 to 9 tuples of futures. Interesting. So this would be in use case of these tuples for the records side of things, I guess. The new records.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
They finally removed deferred library class because now you're meant to be using deferred as for a long time in your import syntax.
The thing about using a tuple is that it's going to be able to be a single return value in future wait. So it'll be nicer, because right now, like if you have 6 things, you've got to number them 0 through 5, and on the output you have 0 through 5. But if you have like a tuple of 2 things and a tuple of 4 things, then you'll be able to cleaner identify it on the way out. So that's actually a good thing.
You can also, I suppose, with the record stuff, you can then extract. You do .0, .1. Extract.
Yeah.
Nice.
No, yeah, $.0.
The nice thing about, I think people don't realize that the
$1.
There was actually a lot of optimizations that are made with records in those examples. So the example where you want to return multiple values, right now you would make a list or use square brackets, return your 2 elements, and extract those out the other side. Now, from the compiler's point of view, that list, I mean, you may have those runtime parameters. Through static analysis, it may not be able to determine that there's only ever 2 items, depending on how you construct it, right? Now, this means that not only are you making a list object, you're then allocating 2 entries, you're initializing those 2 entries, you're then sending those 2 entries back as your return value to then extract those 2 entries. What actually happens, or should happen in terms of records, I don't know for sure, is that the compiler can make the optimization know, okay, I'm returning just 2 values. So you can put them in registers and they're immediately accessible outside the function as part of the return value, right? Or they're referenced directly from the stack memory. There's a bunch of ways that is a more optimal path now, rather than instantiating objects and allocating memory. There's huge difference in those two in terms of, especially when you're calling these functions like 100 times, 1,000 times, in loops and so on. It really is going to be a good gain, I think. What else we have here? Breaking change when migrating to code to Dart 3. Some changes to platform libraries only effective when migrating the language. You can no longer, the following is an interface that can no longer be extended, Q. The following implementation class. So there is a Q constructor. So I guess that goes to an implementation of, list Q probably. Yeah, okay. That makes sense. Yeah. Linked list entry can no longer be implemented. The following implementation class can no longer be implemented or extended. Blah 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 blah. So yeah,
the reason for these restrictions is that it means that the compiler designers can optimize, knowing there won't be any other weird methods that might come in from the side in a subclass that would impact the analysis they're able to do at the compile time. And so that's why these are sealed classes and starting to be a lot more locked down. The core classes are being sealed.
I lost my place.
However, with the inline classes, you can wrap any one of these in your own class layer and effectively add methods to it, but it becomes its own class. So it's a separate issue. Yeah.
.developer package. Max user tags has changed its name. This kind of syntax of uppercase went away quite some time ago, so they're just cleaning up.
Yeah.
Registered extension will be run in a zone from which they're registered. Callbacks past. That's handy, I guess. Probably resolved a few errors around the zone. Zones can be very complicated, in fact. So try to avoid them when you can. I thought this was going to interest. Removed and deprecate metrics, metric, counter, and gauge classes as they've been broken since Dart 2.
No counter class. How are we going to make the counter app without the counter class?
No. These are in the developer stuff, and this is how you would send data back over a channel. I mean, there's other alternatives that you can use, so this isn't like they've been broken, no one's using them, so get rid of them basically.
I just thought it was always funny that there's a built-in counter class, and we're building counter apps over and over again for demos with Flutter. So
okay. So registered element has been removed now. Previously now deprecated element. Okay, so these methods have been deprecated. I guess there's alternatives.
They were deprecated before, now they're being removed.
Yeah, I'm just like, sorry, yeah. I'm just like, I guess there's other ways of registering elements, basically. Anyway, what else do we have here? Breaking change migration.3. The random interface can only be implemented and not extended.
Okay.
I guess. Sure.
Somebody has reasons for every single thing here.
Yeah, and
we're not necessarily privy to that. We are not the core team. We don't know.
Yeah,
we are just reading this like you do.
Yeah, to be clear, we're going to say this again. We're not members of the Flutter team. We don't work for Google. Just this community.
No.
Added name and signal number to process signal. I've actually wanted this for a very long time. So when you have to deal with process signal and don't have those, that kind of gets annoying. So that's really helpful. Let's support return.
I like the fact that it's been hard coded to be true for a while now. So
yeah, it's always returned true. I favor IPv4 connections over IPv6 when connecting sockets. That's interesting.
Why would that be?
I don't know. I'm curious myself.
Legacy
maybe
fallback.
It's because maybe this is just around the fact that lots of people don't have IPv6 configured correctly, so it just breaks when trying to do DNS resolution.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
It does. Yeah, due to fact. Yeah, look. So I run very slow during HTTP calls in Wi-Fi networks due to failing IPv6 DNS resolution.
Right.
Yep, exactly why. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. To be fair, like internal LAN networks, you pretty much it's only they're all still IPv4. I went way too far. Sorry.
Whoa.
Yeah, way too
I'm dizzy. Wow.
Sorry, I'll get back there. Here we go. We're back.
Let me know when I can look back at the screen. All right.
No, we're in like an older change.
Yes.
No, this is it? Oh, no, you're right.
Yeah, because
oh my goodness me.
Jeez. The change log is long. It's very long. because many changes
Here we
have
go.
been made.
We're back. I won't do that again. I'm sorry. Right.
Okay.
Great. So that's interesting, right? So most internal networks still use IPv4. And then they do have IPv6, but IPv4 is normally the go-to. And then it's the internet that wants to use IPv6 to extend the IP range, because you have 4 billion IP addresses on your local LAN effectively, right? Like it's with IPv4, it's still not going to run out anytime soon. So I can see that. And misconfigured public Wi-Fi networks for IPv6, loads of those, right?
Huge,
Yeah.
I have 3. I personally own 3/48s, and that means I can enumerate all the stars in the sky something like 1 billion times over with my addresses.
What's this? Okay.
If I ever wanted to do that.
JSify is now permissive and has inverse semantics to Dartify. Oh, nice. Okay. So what you get out of one side is what you can put in the other, and what you get out of this you can put back into this, right? So
nice.
It's a lot more workable, because that was always the thing.
I'm sure somebody's English teacher is yelling at the fact that we're calling it JSify and Dartify.
You don't think they were arguing about talking about the operator instead of operators on that line? There's a typo in there too. There was a typo on that line too, up above.
Oh well.
So Dart Web
good
compiler.
Good at English speaking programmers aren't necessarily.
So this is all about, because now it's going to null safety, right? So complete null safety. So the null stuff can all be removed, basically.
We've got some good questions coming in, so whenever you're
we'll be finished with this shortly, and then we'll jump.
Yes. Cool.
Format. Finally, format of sync start and async functions with this bodies. It actually respects it. Don't split this after collection literals. Better indentation for multi-line function types inside argument list.
Nice.
Fixed bug where parameter metadata wouldn't always split when it should. Interesting. So there's a bug in the format. So basically what we're saying here is, if you're using Dart format in your pipeline, you better make a ticket to reformat all your code and submit it again to make sure you don't break the pipeline. Because it might change. All right.
It will change.
Most static analysis hints were converted to warnings. Okay, hints converted to warnings. Any remaining hints are intended to be converted soon after Dart 3. Okay, so basically hints now are considered warnings. This means any previously hinted reported at Dart analyzer are now considered fatal and result in non-zero exit. So that's nice. Okay, and then you have to turn it off. You have to specify a flag. So we're going from that sort of idea of lints are hinting to you to fix changes. So lints are now going to cause you problems to compile your code. So that's great. That's really good. Better code, better enforcement of code. Like that. Yeah, good code. Static enforcement SDK only at since. Oh, okay.
This is a good one.
And it will report warnings as well. Nice. If the constraint is
that means, for example, if you use isolate run, which is since 2.19, but your code is 2.18, it will now say, no, you can't even run this code because this feature is not there. Yeah. Cool.
Protects the Dart analysis server against extreme memory usage by limiting the number of plugins per analysis context to 1. Okay, so maybe this stops runaway memory usage in the Dart analysis server that we've been seeing as developers.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
This is again something else that we wanted for a while. So, all right, and then linter. We're not going to go through all these, but apparently updates linter, new lints, explicit reopen, unnecessary breaks. Is that because I feel like breaks are no longer required between case statements? If I remember rightly.
Yeah, on the new case, on the new switches, the new case, if there's code there, when you have the next switch, it automatically is a break. That's different from before.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I'm going to do here. Hang on, just for the sake of not losing that scroll position again, I'm going to reshare the window this time, and that should mean
open tabs.
I can open tabs up. So I just opened up this unnecessary break. So yeah, there you go. I only use breaks in non-empty switch statements. If you, oh yeah, so bad, this, good, this, yeah. So because this is something else. Like you used to have fall through, and I think someone else told me this recently. Fall through got removed, so break statements are no longer needed.
Yep.
Yeah, it does not support fall through execution for non-empty cases. Okay, so it does. Okay, interesting. Okay, that's
so you can say case one, case two code,
it works,
and that falls through. But case one, some code, case two, other code is only going to run one or the other.
Yeah. So basically, now we can say get rid of those breaks. So we don't need them. There you go. Look, there's a good example there of what would work. And this is saying this is pointless, right? Because
no, that you want.
No, sorry, no.
Yeah, if you don't want one to fall through to two, you want to put the break. If you just want to do nothing.
Yeah, okay, all right. I'll let you off. Also, it's like, well, don't even have it in there. But if you need to fulfill the, like an enum or something, you need to fulfill it. I guess.
Yeah. Right, or you wanted to keep from going to the default case.
Right.
Yeah.
Type literal in constant pattern. That's not in the website yet. So, I'm on the wrong page. Don't use constant patterns with type literals.
Constant patterns.
Okay.
Is that okay right there? That would look to me like it should be okay. I missed. Is that code right there? Because that looks like it's fine.
Sorry.
Is that? Are we in the okay code? Because I think that's okay, right?
Well, bad. This is bad. This is bad, and this is good.
Yeah.
So it's saying that basically X case in is something that you should not be using. You should be equals in. So you're basically saying that the case of X, the type that passed in here must be in for it to drop into here.
Just being more explicit.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And I think this is Dart 3 stuff.
Yeah, this is all Dart 3. This is about pattern matching. By the way, this is pattern matching. Okay, I was curious.
Yeah.
What else we have? Invalid case pattern. So again, that must be, this is all related to Dart 3. And so look, it's experimental at the moment. Obviously going to be released in Dart 3. This website hasn't been updated. So, okay, so now that's nice. So it will actually detect invalid patterns, basically. So when you have patterns that definitely won't match or they're problematic in some fashion, it will tell you. That's really handy. It's really the kind of thing that's needed because patterns it's gonna add some weight to understanding what's going on for sure. Don't get me wrong, but it's also it's really required. Oh, okay,
yeah,
that's interesting. All right, update to existing links, removed support for enable null safety. Yeah, because it's going to be just to let everyone know if they're watching for Dart 3 is only going to be null safe code. You won't have to have unsafe
no legacy mode.
Nullable code. Yes, the legacy code. Basically.
Yeah, no legacy mode.
Booleans, prefer boolean inserts, prefer equals. Oh wow, yes. Do you remember this when you actually had default values that were always equals rather than colon, or the other way around, wasn't it? I can't remember. Yeah. Super goes last.
It was colon for a while, I think.
Yeah.
Was it colon for a while and it's equals now? Yeah. So they're getting rid of the need to say prefer it because now it is the preferred way. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was weird for maps. It was, or for named parameters, it was colon, and for positional parameters, it was equals because that mimicked the original intent. But it's so confusing that I'm glad they just made it one way and it's done.
There's just tons of little updates and fixes. So if you're using any one of these things, you might be worth looking at these. I'm not going to go through them now because we want to get on them. Time's wasting. Migration tool removal. This is one I did not get, and I do not agree with, to be honest.
Yeah,
because Dart 3 is null safe, which basically means if you want to migrate your code at this point, literally you're going to hit a hard wall, and you're going to say you have to migrate it.
Right.
But now the tool's gone, so you actually have to go back to Dart 2.19 before upgrading to Dart 3. I kind of like that should be that big. That's going to be a big warning box on the Dart website somewhere, right?
Yeah.
On the Flutter website in terms of upgrading to Dart 3, because people are gonna forget about that, right? They're gonna be like, why can't I use Dart Migrate? Why is it not working? Just imagine, Randall, the amount of questions you're gonna get on Stack Overflow, which like Dart Migrate doesn't work.
It's already gonna keep me selling both Puro and FVM to everybody, because all you need to do is maintain a Flutter version that's prior to Dart 3.
But still, but the point here is for a lot of non sort of like heavy Flutter users, this is not going to be obvious, right? Like
no. Even Dart migration wasn't obvious to most people. I mean, it was a little weird.
Okay, this is another one I want to.
I was going to say, go back to what you said. Deprecate would make sense there.
Yeah, sure. But the reason why is because they probably can't compile the Dart Migrate tool because it's unsafe, right? Unsafe null. So they have to compile the Dart Migrate tool with a previous version of Dart because they've removed
it. Has to run the analyzer for the old code to be able to tell where to annotate it to make a new code. Yes,
but it should be like we've migrated this out to a separate package, like a separate binary, shipped it with the SDK, and then when you call Dart Migrate, it just runs that separate binary or something, right? There's ways around that problem, right?
Yeah.
And just for at least the first major release of 3, right?
Or do your migrations today. Just do as soon as this show is over, go to your migrations, and you won't worry about anything we've been arguing for the last 6 minutes. Really.
And in your code base, set aside a day or a week. And
I really want to cover this point 1 before, like, there's a few more things. So I want to race through this because we'll get to the questions. But look at this. To preserve compatibility with null safe code pre-Dart 3, Pub will interpret a language constraint indicating language version of 2.12 or higher, an upper bound of less than 3 as less than 4. I'm very happy about this. I get it. I completely get it. But
it makes 90% of the pubs still work.
Yeah, but
you didn't do that.
I wrote this and it's not doing it. You know, like there's the configuration files are meant to be explicit, right? There's no if you again, it's one of these implicit behaviors that suddenly works, and everyone's like, why does this work? It should not work, right? Like, I just that's the thing that hurts me the most. But I completely get it because so many packages have an upper bound of 3, and they would all just not work on Dart 3. Right, so I completely get without being updated. So I completely get it, but also I'm just like it irks me a little bit. It's cool.
This is again playing with the definition of breaking change, the same way that 2.12 played with it by looking at the configuration file to decide if it was pre or post breaking change.
Yeah.
So it's the same way. This thing about 3 becoming 4 as an upper bound is again a way of playing with what breaking change actually means.
All right, and Dart Pub published will no longer warn about dependency overrides. So that makes sense because dependency overrides can be used in other ways, especially for example, like Malicious and monorepos and so on. Dart Pub token add now verifies blah blah blah. Dart Pub get and related commands will now by default also update the dependencies in the example folder if it exists. Okay, so if you've got a plugin and you have an example folder, update the dependencies there when you update the library's dependencies. That's good, and you can turn it off as well, which is great. So if you don't want this behavior in your pipeline or whatever, you can turn it off. Okay, and that's it. That's brings us up to date. So yeah, there's a ton of little things in here. Most of which these are just like the change log of what to kind of watch out for. But obviously, we've got new language features, right? Like they don't explicitly call them out in here. I don't think, do they? I don't think I saw them at the top. Yeah, they're not calling out the new language changes in Dart 3 in the change log, but this is more about breaking changes, deprecations, and things like that, which is really good to know about. Okay, we lost the video for Randall. Anyway, let's carry on. So I guess we'll jump into questions. So let's jump into the first question.
Cool.
What do we have here? Imad says, a problem I have with Flutter Widget Inspector is when I click in a specific child in the widget tree, it took me to the right line of code, but now it's not working in VS Code Android Studio.
Wait, that's not the first question in the list.
Yeah.
Is it not? Well, we're going to take this one first, and that's my mistake, and we'll go back to the first one in a minute. But we'll ask this one first. So sorry, anyone else that, yeah.
I didn't want them to worry.
Anyway,
I'm on-
let's have a look here. Okay, well, I mean, I was going to say that the other thing here is sometimes there's random breakages in your tooling. If this is a consistent problem, I would be concerned. But also update. So newer versions of plugin may have broken compatibility with older versions of Android Studio or VS Code. So that would be my go-to. He says it's not working in VS Code and Android Studio, which has me thinking that
that's
it's the analyzer.
Yeah,
it has to be, because that's something that's in common, because the VS Code plugin is completely separate. Dan Tuppeny does that one.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
totally separate from the JetBrains one. They interpret Dart and Flutter differently, but they both use the analyzers. So if the problem might be the analyzer's line numbers, that might be an issue.
Yeah. I'd also say one thing to do, even if you're on Mac, go to Activity Monitor on Mac or Task Manager on Windows, shut down the IDE, shut down whatever you use, VS Code, Android Studio, and go check, do you have any Java process hanging around or any Dart process hanging around by mistake?
Yeah.
Kill the tasks, kill those, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they've got an infinite loop, or they're stuck being unloaded, or something else is causing a problem. And then start your IDE back up. And you can also close ADB, which is the Android debug bridge, and start that back up again. And I think it's probably going to put you in a, again, have you tried turning it off and on again, right? Like just restart things and see how it sits. But long running tasks like that kind of can get into a weird state. Okay, so that's the first yet not first question. Let's go to the first question.
Yeah.
Is there a way to stream data from native Kotlin side to Flutter using Pigeon instead of using an event channel? I mean, data streaming and listening.
Maybe.
It's interesting because if you go look at the implementation of the event channels, they are just method channels.
Yeah.
So the answer is yes, you can. What you do is you set up in your receiving end, that is on your Dart side, you add your method handler, and when it receives a method of like new value, whatever it is, then you just write that into a stream, and now you're listening to it. So yes, in short, you just treat your sending messages back as a stream in the Dart side. I
think the question is specifically about Pigeon, though. So,
but Pigeon would just add the additional like standard functionality. It generates it though, doesn't it?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And just a follow up on this, right? The next one's actually talking about what he's going to do. Yeah.
Oh.
But it's not supported type safe. Neither would Pigeon be type safe. Anything across the channel is not type safe because it has to be serialized and deserialized. I think all Pigeon's doing is adding the type casting on top for you. I don't think you're going to get any benefit. Pigeon is just there to automate the process of generating these things if you have large interfaces. Right. I don't know if you would get a big benefit from making those specific changes. If it works right now with event channels, add your type safety on top, put it behind a facade, as it were, and just expose a stream with your specific type and go with it. Anything from you guys on that one? Sorry,
that's all I was going to say. You just need to add it in. You add the type safe at the closest level to where you're talking to it. And then the rest of it is as perfect as it can be.
It's one of those things, right? It's like when you're dealing with serialization, deserialization. You know that you're interpreting some data stream, and you're not receiving it in any type safe way. That is a stream of, could be whatever you want. It could be broken halfway through. It could be corrupt. You don't know. So when it comes to like treating stuff that's dynamic, the first thing you want to do is stop it from being dynamic. So always, deserialize don't just have random maps of string to dynamic used across your application. Looking up, I've seen it before, entire apps where they just look up keys from maps in every widget.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Insane.
Don't do that.
Use objects. Use objects. Yeah. That's what they're meant for.
Use objects and classes. That's what they're there for, right? Right. So, I mean, there's so many other ways that reasons why that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
I mean, even like, let's say just suddenly the service stops sending a field, and now suddenly your app required that field to be there, and your app explodes because now it gets null back, and that just causes them more problems or something.
Yep.
Well, the biggest problem is if you have two keys in a map that had to have different types of values. There's no way to represent that as a map because the only value type you can use then is dynamic.
Yeah.
Question.
And so, or object question or whatever, right? But but once you create an object there, then one of them could be a string and one of them can be an int, and you can have a much stronger type safety.
Well, what are those things called? We were just talking about them earlier, like sealed class and so on. Like, what were they called? Aren't they called, like, don't they have a name?
We have like the base class and the variants of it.
Like you have sealed class, mixing class, and all this. Do we have like a union class? Do we have? Because
no
I'm just thinking, if you've got
no sum classes, we do have union classes effectively because it's going to be the base type that you define plus all the variant types. That's what's going to be useful with patterns overall. But we don't have sum types. I just read up on this yesterday because I'm curious about the different definitions. There's union types and there's sum types, and we're not getting sum types. We're getting only union types.
Right. Okay.
Algebraic data type. There we go. The chat room has it.
Thanks.
Algebraic data type.
Oh, yeah, George is in here. George knows these things. Right.
Yep.
Okay. Let's move on. Next question. My mess. Struggling with async await problems. Code jumps out of routines on awaits. And you can wait. Okay. This is not jumping out. It's because the code pauses. So therefore, you cannot step. You cannot step in over an await. Right. You essentially have to put a breakpoint on the line after the await to continue. So what was happening is once the await finishes, it then hits the breakpoint and you continue. So this is just normal behavior, right? You cannot step over and ask the debugger to await, basically. I've always experienced that behavior. I don't think it's a recent change.
Well, it makes sense. What else are you gonna do?
Yeah, what I do is I put a breakpoint inside the function that's asynchronous or after the await, and you can always just disable the breakpoints as well. So once you put the breakpoint in there, disable it so it doesn't get hit again if you're doing loops and so on. So you can, anything else? I think that's it. I hope that helps.
Yeah. Close enough.
Mohammed.
I don't know.
Why is Dart JSON decoder slower than other languages?
Is it?
I'm going to say it's not. It is in debug mode, which is where you're testing it. I obviously haven't done any running tests. Please do benchmarks, but you do benchmarks in debug, profile, and release builds, because I've seen this literally just recently. I was doing profile builds thinking I'm going to be profiling this. It's going to be perfect. I did profile builds and I still had problems with extra data being in there because I'm retrieving it from the profiler, right? So the only actual true measure is the release build as to what people are going to see. So
also a possible other answer to this is I would consider the time that it takes to convert from the maps into into objects as being apparently extra time compared to other languages, because it is doing a lot more work. It's bundling and recopying the data over into new objects, and that does take time, and that does add a bit of a slowdown. But I don't know that it's significantly slower. If the original poster there, if Mohammed could maybe give a specific example of another language and the benchmarks they've done to show that taking a raw data string and just converting it to the decode JSON map structure is slower in Dart than it is in other languages. I'd like to see that, because I bet it's not true, because that's all being done at low-level C code. That's not being done up in the just random Dart code, which would still be just as fast probably anyway. So I think we've lost Simon just for a bit. Go ahead, Daniel. I had an answer there too.
It's not really an answer. I'm just going to make kind of an observation, though, that for that to be even really noticeable, you'd have such a huge JSON.
Yes.
We could also be running into environmental memory constraints. We could be
Right.
things that could be happening that are that could slow it down. That are because either that's on a really slow machine, or it's on it's a huge JSON. Because otherwise you wouldn't even notice.
Here's a follow-up question, and actually, I think we should answer that. Those are the same. JSON decode is JSON decode. It's the same call.
Right.
It's exactly the same call. It's just two different ways of getting to it. The thing is that JSON global might be overwritten by a package import or something.
Yeah.
And so there's also this function called JSON decode that does exactly the same thing as a tuple of a global as well. So you can get either one of those. So that's how that works. And let's see if we can pull up the next one here. I can move the slide here. Let's get rid of that. Okay. Here's one I'm not going to be able to answer at all. We may have to wait for Simon to get back. Gradle problems. I just hate it when there are Gradle problems. That's really my only response to Gradle is just to hate it.
Yeah.
That doesn't ever help.
This is what Gradle has always been. I fiddle and part with it until it works, and then I leave it alone until it breaks again.
This is one I think we'd need more info. You might want to take this over to Stack Overflow or to the Flutter
Discord.
The Flutter Discord channel. Yeah, one of the channels there. Yeah.
Yep. So check that out that way.
Have you made any changes on it, or that's one follow-up questions I have. Is you made any changes to it, or are you talking about straight up for what Flutter gave you? Because that would mean your environment.
Yeah, really. My ultimate test for this is I go now make the Flutter counter app. Yeah. If that builds fine, it's something you did, or something did that you brought in. Because if the counter app works, that's one thing. But if the counter app doesn't work, you got bigger problems that you need to solve way first.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Install and setup issues, probably.
All right. So let's try this one here. When do you think Impeller will be fully released for Android? When it's ready. And never a moment before. Okay, you guys, it's coming out as fast as it can, and that means all sorts of things, and there's all sorts of dimensions to that question and to that answer, and it's never going to be released until it's ready.
Yep.
I suspect it's going to go into preview just like iOS, so you'll get ahead of time before it's fully released, right? So you can try it out, report bugs, and then there'll be a whole swath of bugs being fixed so that, rest assured, everyone has the same experience.
But when's iOS Impeller going to be released?
Yeah, when it's ready.
When it's ready.
When it's ready.
It's actually there's already a pre-release now, so you can go play with it. In fact, that's the default, I think, on iOS right now, right? Isn't it now in the latest Flutters? Isn't that different by default?
Good question. I don't remember what they said. I think it's out of experimental. I think this is said. So now you can enable it and release with it. I don't know if it's the default.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Let's see here.
Next question. Should I grab the next question?
Please.
Yeah.
Any guides for next Dart 3 support to be familiar with it?
Yeah.
Same stuff we're looking at.
I'll be honest with you. We've experienced it here on the channel just a few times by doing experiments with it and playing around with it. But now it's on. Now it's in Dart. It'll be in Dart Master, right? So because
where's the link? Where's the link for the funnel or the Let's look at the funnel and go from there to the link to the specs for patterns and stuff. That'll be the great way to do that.
Let me bring this up on the stream here. I can press
We're having our link monkey go find it.
So I'll pop this in the chat. This is what you call the language funnel. This is where they're making Dartlang makes the language changes, and this is the board that shows it's been spec'd right now. It's ready for implementation. It's doing this, and here's the
ones in that column.
Done. Yeah. And if we click
on
this,
done. That's the first time I've seen it done. Ooh.
Well, considering that it changed up for Dart 3 is now out, and Dart 3 has this in there, I just hope it's done. And here's the
it's no longer experimental features too. The patterns and records are no longer experimental.
This in the chat. I think the key I'd say is check out the most recent version of
those
Flutter.
change.
Sorry, recent version of Dart. Maybe you have to pull it down yourself from the Dart website. I don't know if Flutter's shipping yet. Maybe Flutter Master probably ships. I think
Flutter Master is shipping with a recent version of Dart Master, not always the latest, but a recent version. I'm watching that every day.
And then,
so yes.
And then you can play around with some of these features, all specced out and explained in this lovely document that's miles long that you're going to make everyone sick with.
Yes. The problem is this is a specification, not a tutorial. So the tutorials will be forthcoming when people like me can get our heads around it and start doing screencasts about it and can start writing up Medium blog posts. There have been a few already. I've seen them come out. So it's getting there. It's the same way everything you find out about everything else in the Dart and Flutter world is that some of us write about it. Some of us talk about it. That's how you find out. And we're working on it. That's what our job is.
That's a perfect segue to the call for papers. That's currently now open for FlutterCon. So if you're interested in talking about Dart 3 stuff and you've kind of you want to get your head around it, start looking at the stuff, submit a paper for fluttercon.dev, and we might get that included in the schedule in, as I said, 5th to 7th of July in Berlin this year. And also the tickets are now available. So again, if you want to go experience that stuff for yourself, you can have a ticket now. That's my pitch. And that's it. Over. Back to the show.
Good job.
Yeah, this I can just say that it's just the whole thing with FlutterCon just gave so much momentum. So yeah, get in there now and trust me, you'll love it. It's absolutely brilliant. So go on. What was the next question on our list here? Find it.
Whatever it says.
Well, while you're looking for it, I wanted to point out that Waruna had made a suggestion on the if your large JSON files are going too slow, you can always make an isolate.
Yeah, for sure.
With isolate run, which is new in 2.19.
Wait, was there?
Yeah, you made a question, but yeah.
So there's actually the very first. It's kind of interesting because the very first there's a tutorial on the Flutter site on the main Flutter site that's been there since day one, which is their example of offloading stuff into an isolate is decoding JSON in the background. The problem was, and what we've always experienced as a community is that suddenly everyone's like, oh, to pass JSON, I have to do this whole isolate thing. And it's like, no, you don't have to do that. You don't. Like literally most JSON files can they're like a few kilobytes at most. If you're going to be suddenly passing and trying to decode, hundreds of kilobytes, megabytes of JSON, well then maybe it's going to take more than 16 milliseconds to do that. In which case you're going to skip a frame. So you want to put that on a background isolate.
We have the same problem in RiverPod because one of Remy's first examples in the riverpod.dev documentation is to use overrides to have a specific provider at a buried detailed level have a particular value and so you can use a const widget. And it's such a corner case. It's such an odd case that wouldn't ever show up in anybody's real code unless you're really trying to get like the last 2% out of your performance. That now everybody thinks that's the only way to do it. And no, just do the normal thing. Have an index builder, anyway.
I mean, we have said this before, right? You do your code, don't early optimize, then go look at your optimizations and figure it out from there.
Right.
I was just trying to find everyone this link. So this is the cookbook, which I'll put in the chat here. And this we can go find some really cool examples of doing lots of things with animation design. I worked on a bunch of these effects. Like you'll find a bunch of these in here. Now there's also in here, if I search JSON, passing background JSON. Here's a nice little cookbook example. I'll pop that in the chat so people can get it. And this will talk you through how to do that kind of thing. I do wonder.
Does he use isolate run yet?
It's probably using Flutter's compute.
I think it uses compute.
But also, just to be clear, compute. Yes, it does.
Compute.
This compute function does use isolate run. So if you're using the latest versions of Dart that have isolate run, it's going to use isolate run, so don't worry about that. But yeah, anyway, so there's a nice complete example here of how you might do that in the background with an isolate and an example for showing it working. So,
and unlike that person in the Medium article that insisted when I said use isolate run for your example about using isolates, and they said, no, that requires more stuff like send port and receive port and stuff. No, I now have this show to tell you were wrong, and you responded 3 different times to my Medium follow-up comments. I was right. You're wrong.
It's like that. You just explained the entire internet right there.
Yeah. There's something wrong with it. I was up at 2 a.m. answering that because you wrote the wrong thing. You did isolate spawn, you did compute, and then you stopped short of isolate run. And I said, why didn't you show isolate run? And he said, because it takes more work. I go, no, it takes less work. And it works in Dart as opposed to just Flutter.
Just say that example answers the previous question, which was, is there any examples of using isolate? So there you go. There's a great example there of using isolate.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, about Wasm. Can you compare one version built with Dart with a Rust version that have the exact same features? Example, Hello World app. That's a good question. I mean, theoretically, yes. I mean, there's no reason why you couldn't, but they do have different runtime environments, and the runtime environments are also included as part of the build. So I guess you could compare just the bit that the actual Hello World, like the actual main function and what's inside the main function, but you couldn't compare to anything outside of that because that's the runtime environment.
Is he asking us to do it?
Can you compare one version? Oh, I see what you mean. I know not can I, can we? Okay, gotcha.
The answer is it possible for people? Is it possible for some people to do the comparison? Yes, it is possible for some people to do the comparison.
To be honest, I think I haven't got that. We should probably make a show about Wasm and get and ask.
Yeah,
it'd be a good idea.
Kevin Moore to join us on the stream. He did a wonderful talk at WasmCon, WasmIO. I can't remember what it's called now, where he actually discussed how it all works. I think I can find that link for everyone.
Do we know how they're working on making it smaller? I mean, I know that that's one of the goals, and to basically stop that as being a sticking point for loading it. Do you have how they're doing?
I think so. And I mean, half of that is things like the GC. Like they would at the moment have to include like the entire GC environment in the JavaScript, right? Now, given that, I mean, I guess no, I don't know. I'm not going to go for it, right? For sure. But there's probably a lot they don't have to actually compile it in. Yes, I come for that video. Why can't I find? I know it was here, but. This is what happens. Tweets just like scooch past really quickly, and then you lose them, right? Well, I'm going to suggest you go find
Google
it yourself.
For it.
I'm going to quickly.
It's wasmio.tech. You're looking specifically for his talk, for Kevin's talk. Yeah.
Hang a minute. I found it.
Did you? Okay, I just saw it. Yeah.
I think I found it.
And Julio, you cannot share the link because you don't have the right powers on the chat.
Right.
The one from Barcelona. Let's have a look.
You want?
I think this is the right link. Yes, it is. Yeah. Okay, I'll pop this in the chat. This is a YouTube link. If you're interested in Wasm and Dart, this is the thing to go look at. Check it out after our stream, of course.
Yes.
And then go thank Kevin Moore on Twitter. I'm sure he'll like to get the appreciation for his hard work. Right. Sure. Next question, I guess.
Sure.
Turth, how does Code Push Solutions comply with App Store Google app policies?
We don't know yet.
Well, luckily, we don't work for Apple or Google in their policy department, so I have no idea. I have no idea.
I'm sure they're working it out.
I'm
sure Eric and the team. Yeah.
My answer to this would be go read the guidelines and tell us how does it
Yeah.
comply or how does it not comply. Right.
Right. It'll be interesting, but I'm sure that the people from what's the Eric's thing?
Oh,
Bird
Eric's new.
something. Songbird?
Yeah.
Songbird?
No.
This is me as well. Oh my
That's
gosh. How did
good
all of
branding. Good branding. Good branding.
what is it?
Shorebird. Shorebird. Yes,
That's
thank
it,
you.
That's it, yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
Shorebird is going to have to deal with that issue somehow, or they'll have no reason to exist. So I'm sure Eric has some ideas
yeah.
and some favors he can pull. Yeah.
There's also, I mean, like talking about this whole thing, like code push has actually always essentially been a thing with web apps because they've always been able to download JavaScript. So it ends up being a bit more complicated than this, and I think it's more about when I think a lot of this sort of around code push for the stores at least ends around the fact that lots of when apps are uploaded, they go through a static analysis process where they will see what APIs you're calling, how you're calling them, all that kind of fun stuff. And then when it comes to code push, obviously they can't analyze that. So it kind of avoids their checks. And no one wants spam, no one wants junk on their phones, and possibility of problems. So it gets really complicated in short. So it's curious, but complicated.
And I would point out that Google and Apple are different companies, so it's quite possible we'll end up with one solution with Google and another one with Apple.
Yeah.
Right, and then we might have something like Shorebird, which maps the two for us, so we don't have to deal with the problems. Hopefully, I'm just guessing here. You go read about Shorebird. Right,
and no, not Songbird. I'm sorry, I was just making up words that ended in bird because I knew it was some bird something. Yes, right.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry.
Random.
Just talked about that earlier, but thanks, Rustam, for pulling it up.
Yep.
What's this one? Do someone else want to read some questions here?
Yeah, no, we talked about the question with JSON decode, and part of the question was what JSON decode.
Yeah, we answered this.
Yeah,
he answered it. And Rustam also was though pointing out the fact he found an answer and was putting it up there too.
He did find the answer on Stack Overflow. Yeah,
I've always used JSON.decode. The functions. So I think the functions originally existed to use them as like function references. I think it was, but something like that. I can't remember now. But it's always just both have been there for compatibility, basically.
If you'd been here, Randall told us why we have it.
Go then, Randall. Why do we have it?
Rewind the tape back 20 minutes. And you'll see me talking about it. We've done this. Let's move on.
Yeah. Oh, was it in here then? All right. Anyway, moving on. All right, next one.
All right.
It's been recorded. You can watch the show.
It was marked with a Q.
Yeah.
Okay. It's okay. Build an object in UI page. If not, then how?
You're building objects all the time.
Yeah.
What are you meaning? You're always building an object.
I don't.
Probably need to give us some more specifics.
Yeah, I don't understand.
4 is an object. 17 is an object. Hello World is an object. You're building those all the time.
Monthly calendar view.
Common viewer here. How best to create an infinite scrolling grid view up and down as a seamless monthly calendar view?
So just month after month after month?
Yeah, so you keep scrolling with it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a list view, builder.
Right.
No, it's not.
I'm sorry.
I tell you why. No, I tell you why. You are correct. So let me just explain something here. So this is for everyone. List view, scroll view, all slivers have a issue, and that is they have a pixel offset, which is how they control where you are scrolled to, which in effect means you cannot have true infinite, first of all. But okay, that's you can get 4 billion, you get 6 trillion, right? Like it's a bit of a mismatch there. However, what happens is you start at 0 and you can't go negative. So although you can keep scrolling infinitely, there's always a bound on one edge, right? So you're always starting at 0. And if you do reverse true, you're starting at the bottom of 0 and going up, but it's still a positive number going up, right? So you don't actually get negative pixel offsets. However, you can, and that's that only, but that takes place by turning off the scroll physics, so you can actually scroll outside the bounds. But again, it's nothing that's built in by default that you're supposed to be able to do. And I believe now it throws on purpose when you try to do this. I can't remember. It doesn't build elements outside of the below 0, I think now. So I actually created a package for this infinite list view or something like that. And it basically just, I think it like overlays 2 scrolling panes and then it keeps them in sync so that you can go into negative and positive. But in short, I wouldn't recommend it. It's a bit of a hack. The simplest way is actually honestly, you could do it yourself pretty easily. And that's probably what I would go with this. And that is do a custom little scroll view, because you can. It's not the end of the world. I mean, you're talking about like monthly calendars that you're scrolling up and down. Where you're going to see 1 calendar on the screen at once, 2 calendars, 3, 5. I don't know. Probably not a lot.
It would be interesting to simply go to the pub and look at all the different calendar definitions, because everybody has solved this in different ways, and it kind of survey the different ways that people have done it, because that would be, I'm always saying that programming is a craft, and part of being a craft is there's the science to learn about it. We do that a lot. There's also the art to learn about it, which is studying other people's art and then making creative derivatives from that. That's what art is all about. So programming is a craft and includes both of those.
Yeah. Just sort of come back to the scrolling thing for a second. It's going to be interesting. I've done a lot with scrolling on mobile over many years. It's kind of interesting because a good example of this is actually what happens inside Flutter as well as Android. And that is you go scroll me to the 100th entry. But what happens is you haven't laid out 100 entries worth of content. If one item is this big and another item's that big, you can't scroll down a certain number of pixels to get to the 100th entry. It means you have to scroll and lay out every 100 of those, every item of those 100 to know where to stop.
Right.
So there's a trick that is used by lots of libraries. It's not used by Flutter built in, which is the technique is called warping, right? But generally, the idea is that what you do is you scroll, and once the speed of the scroll gets to a certain velocity, you're not actually visually seeing the difference between, let's say, item 20 and item 50. Like it's just that fast. So what you can actually do is you can actually jump a distance, and basically a fake distance. So you say suddenly entry or pixel offset this much is now entry 1000. And when you scroll back up, you do the same thing in reverse. So basically, it means that you kind of just changing where your origin of 0 is for your content, but the list still believes it's in the same place. And in doing so, that's a kind of warp effect, kind of warping space-time, bringing these 2 points together.
Cool.
And in essence, it means that when you scroll, you can actually zip to a new place without actually scrolling that distance and laying out those widgets. And it just assumes that that's correct because you told it to. So, but it's complicated, and it's not something that we're going to explain here. There's lots of packages for things like this, though. So go check around. But yeah, as I said, maybe we could talk about maybe look at some coding at some point on doing some of these kind of scrolling things, because I think people are interested.
Yeah, seem to be. Yeah, cool.
All right. What if someone pushes malicious code via code push? Follow-up question. I think we spoke about this, right? Like,
yeah.
I think what's probably going to I would guess what we're probably going to see is if you want to use code push. I think we actually had this recently with Android, which is like they're now allowed to have like update notifications inside your app to tell the user there's an update. I think it's probably my guess. My guess. There's purely a guess, and that is code push will be done through the stores. So you say, "Here's my new code," and then you integrate with an API, and then that pushes down the new stuff to your application. So it still goes through their system, and therefore they can still check it for viruses. But I'm just guessing. That's how I would probably implement it, basically. But yeah,
if you have any questions, please put Q: in front of them. The list is really short right now, so if you want to get your questions in, all the people that like wait until the very last minute and then put their questions in, that's silly. We're here. We're ready for your questions, so please put them in soon.
Does anyone here have a hard stop?
I have,
I have normal.
top of the hour.
Yeah.
Top of the hours. So we've got
top of
this,
about 40 minutes or so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you've got loads of time. Yeah. So get your questions in. Right.
Right.
Let's see. Did I just skip that one?
No,
No,
that one's, yeah.
Okay,
Ask the
what was
Flutter
the last
team.
There is something from the Flutter team on for audio. Isn't it just audio or whatever? Or is that just a best package?
Sorry, I'm just.
I don't
What
know
was
if
this?
there was
Sorry,
some-
is there a plan for official audio package from the Flutter team? I've heard from Tim Sneath about this one point at Flutter Vikings, and he said no, and that wasn't that long ago. So that's the answer.
It seems like
basically,
but
it's the same problem. I think this is so one of the reasons why Flutter community took over a lot of the Plus package. We call them the Plus packages now, which are the original packages, the first party packages. I mean, now they're third-party packages, if you will, maintained by the community. And that was mainly around this thing that the Flutter team have found themselves stretched. They're not building the framework because they're maintaining these plugins. And there has to be a point at which, the community has to come together to help themselves. And this kind of falls into that same category. The reason why they have the video player package is because it's quite, it was, again, one of these very first party packages. I would pretty much be guaranteed if they could get rid of this is my guess, just if they could get rid of these packages off their off their roster and give them out to other people to maintain, they probably would, right, if they were maintained properly. And that's just basically because it takes them away from their core aims, which are the Flutter framework. You could go build there's several audio packages, right? So I don't see there being any official one. It was just a shame, and I think this is it. What we really need is a company that does audio stuff to actually build a package, and that way they're actually putting money and effort into one of these packages rather than open source. Because there's only so much time an open source engineer can put into one of these projects. They're going to have day jobs as well. So and requesting features in an open source package is not going to get you anywhere, right? You need to. If you want a feature, implement it, or speak to the maintainer. If they want it, implement it, submit a PR, right? Like work together.
I don't know MediaKit, but there it is for a suggestion for our audience.
That's kind of interesting because I guess that comes from an iOS first perspective. Because I'm just guessing that MediaKit is an iOS thing because they always call them kits, right?
Oh, built by a 19-year-old. Sorry, I just cut that out real quick. Okay, 19-year-olds are good.
Oh yeah, I mean that's cool. They're sponsored by Stream, apparently. I say apparently, I don't know. I just see it on their thing, right?
I have
a problem with that package. Unverified uploader. That's the thing I have with that, which is fine, but it needs to be linked to a publisher on pub.dev to have some credibility. But
it's trivial to do. It's like 2 steps and you're done.
Supports iOS video, Windows video, Mac video, Linux audio video ready for Windows, Linux, Mac, and iOS. And this is interesting: Android work in progress, web work in progress. So this has come from the other side of this, right? Which is it supports all these other platforms except for those ones. So looks interesting. It looks really quite interesting, and so on. But we'll just see, I guess. It looks like it supports audio and video, right? So that's
nice. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
All in one API, which is cool.
I know people have done pretty good things with the embedded VLC library, which is pretty cool.
The problem I've got with these packages, like the like VLC and FFmpeg, is that they are software. They're software decode. A lot of them have software decoders for everything, right? And you just don't take advantage of the of the DSP that's on the device that you're on. So especially on a mobile device, it just heavily uses the CPU and it consumes your battery a lot more than going for a custom specific device like a DSP for audio decoding and so on. It's the reason why you don't like people since before. It's like, oh, I'm using FFmpeg. Why is it taking so long? Because you're using it all in software. And even if you do use the codecs that are built for hardware GPUs, it's still got to send stuff through your CPU to kind of use those things. So video and audio is hard. It's always been hard. It always will be hard. You're processing streams of lots of data. I mean, I'm going to briefly let me just do a back of the let me just briefly explain a back of the envelope calculation here, right? So if we said full HD, right, that's 1920 pixels across, right, times 1080, which is your vertical resolution. So that's 2 million pixels, right? Okay, so 2 megapixels, right? Now that is pixels. Now each pixel is 3 colors. That's red, green, and blue. Normally denoted by 8 bits. If you're on HDR, it's 10 bits, 12 bits, right? But let's say it's 8 bits. That's 3 bytes per color, times that by 3. Now we're talking about 6.2 megabytes for one frame of graphics. Now you have 60 of those on a low quality. We have 90, 120, 240 hertz, right? 60. That's 373 megabytes per second. Now, that may not seem a lot, but that's a huge amount. Now, if you actually consider that in bits, now we always talk about transfer rates as bits. We multiply that by 8 because there's 8 bits per byte. That's 2.9 gigabits a second for one video at full HD. That's a lot of data you have to suddenly touch and manage and allocate and free and all this kind of stuff that goes around it. So it jumps up on you really quickly. So anyway, all right, let's next question, I guess. Can two Wasm written by 2 languages, Dart and I guess 2 outputs of Wasm written by 2 different languages, Dart and Rust, connect with each other? Yes. Example, encode, decode like service layer, and receive and display data and whatnot. So in short, Wasm is built in the way that you can do that. It's explicitly built in a way to interoperate, and that's done with a very similar export mechanism, import-export mechanism by a lot of other things. And this is how Wasm can also interact with JavaScript. So I don't see any reason why you couldn't do this. You could load multiple Wasm modules and connect them together. So yes, in short. I want to bring this up because I thought this was quite interesting. Usually when I think some part of my code will probably be really slow, I test it and then find out it's 0 milliseconds. Exactly. Like you're talking about like in a microsecond level or less, because you've got such fast machines now. Like perceptively code, when you look at it, you can see that this is going to do more work than this one over here, this one over here. So yes, it's going to be slower. By what amount? Now, there's the thing that's in the back of my mind, and I think some of the people I think on the call here are going to know this, but it's like when you upgrade an operating system, it's like people went from like Windows 98 to like XP. Like, oh my god, my machine's so slow now because software got become more complicated, right? And it also got faster to build, and it got faster to build because it's not. You didn't spend 6 months writing an assembly function this big, like. You can, and it will be really optimized and everything else. But there's a point at which that becomes detrimental to the effort of what you're trying to do because technology moves so quickly. So it'll be out of date. You can run this and make it super optimal, but then it'll be out of date by the time you actually get out the door. There's places where you need to optimize to every instruction, and that's done in codecs and all these things, and there's specific libraries for that and specific companies that deal with that. That's where they should be. It's just a shame now that like software is not done that way. I mean, you can go write your own little bit of code and get it to the most optimal, perfect, fastest way of doing something. And that is perfect for a library or a framework or something. But at the app level, there's zero impact you're going to have on your end customer. Zero impact.
Well, and this is actually one of the, I think we often talk about it for figuring out what to do with optimization and why you wait until you've implemented it a few times to know. This is kind of related to that. It's let it show you it's a problem and then go optimize, because most of the time it's gonna be like you just said, where it's very fast. And so instead of just making your guesses at it, put your work where it actually is going to do some good.
Yeah. I think I think we do talk about this, right? But it's kind of funny because what I just said, I'm realizing that it makes sense to me, but like I would still construct my code in a semi-optimal way. Like I'm not going to go to the end to do that, right? Like you're not going to go allocate objects where you don't need to, right? And you don't go out of your way to make your code slow, but at the same time you don't spend lots of time making your code the most optimal thing it can be, right? So that's that kind of early optimization piece, right? It's like knowing that something else is faster, great, but when do you choose one or the other? Well, that's a per instance,
Well, it's like you don't deliberately choose bubble sort. That's just wrong out of the gate, And so that's the kind of thing that we can first learn to do, is to just use the right kind of algorithms. And anytime you're copying a data from one thing to another, and it doesn't really change form, it's just being copied over and over again, probably a good clue that you have a bad architecture. Like the way I see so many people make these multi indirection layers for their Flutter code. Oh my God. I mean, I've the view model already gets me going when people say that. It's like, no, that's one extra copy. Stop that. You don't need to copy it one more time. It's already in a place that the view can see it. Don't need a view model. Anyway, sorry, rant.
I think I've seen this before. Like code can easily become too abstract, and I see that with what was the model that Risa Coder was using?
DDD.
Data-driven development. I think if you go, but it's like if you go pure TDD, it's just like a nightmare, because now I can't even begin to write my code before, or semblance of code before I write my tests. It's like, well, I don't even know what my code's going to look like before I write my tests. So it's like, right. And I feel like it's the same thing that DDD is. Like you can go to the nth degree DDD. Like everything is a use case. Everything is this, but then you end up with like classes out of one function, and all this, and 10 levels of indirection, and whatever else. And it just becomes so taxing and over complicated to actually manage that code base. Now the code base is for no practical purpose.
Yeah. If your design requires that you write a shim object that has a bunch of methods that are essentially proxied through to another object, it's a bad design. Don't do that. But I see that all the time. And these people that come up with these grand architectures, they make it possible to indirect it just so they might be able to change one thing out of there. No, don't do that. Was it Yagni? You ain't going to need it. Remove any layer that requires proxying things. That's just struck that way.
It's very much the Java way of doing things, right? Everything is an interface. You implement everything, therefore you can decouple everything, and we all know how that went. Not great. I think the answer here is it's always that kind of thing that you go through in the back of your mind when you're coding. It's like, oh, I might want to change this. There's a level of developer where you get to, you're like, oh, if I just decouple this, I can change this with a different implementation.
You won't, though.
You
never get time. You never get time to do that. You barely have time to fix the bugs in your first implementation. You're never going to have a second implementation. Really,
bugs?
Ain't going to need it. Right.
Why are you putting bugs in your implementation?
I know.
I think the answer here is, the answer to this, instead of saying, oh, I might want to give different implementation, it's just be open to refactoring your existing code.
Yeah.
Right?
Refactoring,
really
learn to do that
right?
well. Learn to do that well.
Learn refactoring well. Yeah.
And if you're right,
I'm taking
easier.
The client that's paying me the most money over the last month or two, I've been taking providers and turning them into Riverpod providers. And it's been a fun bunch of exercising, but the code is completely unlike what it was when I started. but at every 2 hour, 3 hour interval, I had code that I could fire up and work because it was partially migrated. And to think about how to do that and to work through that meant that I didn't have to have that layer of indirection from the beginning. I essentially evolved it in the middle. And that's, if you understand refactoring, if you understand your tools, that's not tough, but it does take some discipline to not invent layers of indirection that you don't need. And yes, MVVM sucks. So whoever said that in the chat, James, yeah, thank you. View models, no, that's Java. We are Flutter. rant. Okay, I had Mike too long. Go.
All right, we have another question. Can you recommend any good examples of how to architect?
This is definitely a Randall question.
That's what I'm thinking.
REST API and Riverpod with secure storage.
I think we should have Randall do some live coding.
Yeah, maybe next week.
These guys
maybe next week,
right?
Yeah, I do this in my Dart and Flutter channel. I do stuff like this, but not to the extent that they're talking about. And again, the problem is to illustrate. We have a both ends fighting this problem. To illustrate something, it needs to be simple, where you're not introducing too many things at once at the same time. But to be typical, it's got to have all these things. And so there's this problem of where in that continuum do we dial a particular blog post or a particular set of videos to produce. And I understand your frustration. You kind of want to see the whole thing done. But the problem is you may not want my particular way of doing auth, for example. I mean, I happen to use, when I'm using a Riverpod with auth, with Firebase auth, for example, I'll take a stream provider that is watching the auth changes stream, and I'll insert that right at the top of my tree. And it will choose based on the Riverpod consumption of that auth stream, whether to go down the logged in part of the tree or the logged out part of the tree, which is very good to ensure you're never accidentally on the wrong route. But the problem is that then you can't animate from one leg to the other because you're down the entirely separate tree. I guess you could put an animated widget at the top, right? A dissolve widget.
It becomes even problematic because if you're fetching a user object that now is null or doesn't exist, then suddenly if they're looking at the profile screen, they got logged out, their profile turns like a blank icon and
right,
username. Like there are ways to handle that. Like you would actually provide the user object to the two halves of your tree for logged in and logged out, so that when you get logged out, it stays with the information. But it gets really complicated.
There are different patterns that so of all the things you're listing here, secure storage, REST APIs, authentication, there are individual examples of those with lots of variations for all of those. And what you choose to cobble together from all of those things that you read about is your choice as an artist. So seeing the whole thing done would just be seeing the whole thing done a particular way. I guess that's as a starting example, but my problem is it would probably become, like DDD has become for some people from Risa Coder, like this Bible. You must do this with use cases. You must do this with data objects that are eithers, left, rights. You don't need all that complication necessarily to start with. Sometimes it's just getting the basics down. I remember Remy giving me the guidelines. Remy, the guy who created Provider and Riverpod, giving me guidance about how to use provider stacks. So basically a provider containing a notifier containing a bespoke model underneath that for state, and that all being in one file. And that's like totally a violation of everything I've seen. And I want the layers to be entirely different files and stuff. But no, put that all in one file because you're going to be editing up and down that stack all the time. And then even the view for that, the detail view for that particular part of the app state is also in that same file. And that was a breakthrough for me. When Remy suggested that, I went, oh, that makes a lot of sense, because the detail view does need to be tied very closely to the state of that part of the app state. So you might as well put it in the same file.
Yeah, I was gonna say the other thing you can do is if you do want to separate, then you can also do part and part of.
Yep, if you need to,
really want to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. But don't introduce that if you don't need it. It's just extra work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just in case anyone doesn't know, DTO stands for Data Transfer Object.
Did I say that?
Basically,
DTO?
I don't know. It sounded like you said that. I just want to make sure that people knew what the acronym stands for. But yeah, like if you're sending a model, like your model to from a server over an API is DTO, right? That's you're transferring data, but the model that your app uses, there's a lot. I mean, this is something that it depends on the app, depends on what you're building, but it's normally you end up normally with two models, right? Two sets of models. One is what you send to and from your server. That might be like referencing IDs, for example, right? Let's say an object has a parent in some fashion, the hierarchy, right, in your model. Well, when you get it from the server, it might reference it by ID, and you will have that the parent cached on your device. So when you return it back to the UI, it needs to know the parent object, not the ID. And at that point, you link it together on the back end of your app when you hand it to the front end of your app. So the front end knows the object relationship, and the back end knows the ID relationship. And these are kind of things where you have two sets of models. You have your data transit model and your actual model. But there's a lot of ways of doing these things.
And breaking news: 3.7.11 just got released. So if you're playing around in the Flutter world, so I just upgraded, and I'm using Puro. So I just typed Puro upgrade stable, and my stable version is now updated. But I still have the beta version. I still have the master version available for my experiments. So yeah, Puro, Puro, Puro.net.
Interesting. They haven't released the notice yet for 3.7.
There's no release notes.
No.
Whilst we're on the stream right now, it was 3.7.11 just got released. So we don't know for what. So we'll
45 minutes ago. 45 minutes ago it got released. So we're already behind. We're behind the curve. Yes.
We were behind it last time.
This. I think it's also some remarks that we know. By the way, George is my co-organizer, or should I say, I'm his co-organizer for Flutter London. But I think the key here between all these different patterns is the takeaway. I think, from my perspective at least, is that consistency. Have a consistency to your design and architecture within your application. That's
it should be obvious to you where something goes. So everybody's always arguing religiously about file structure, feature first or layer first or whatever. Yeah. It's people get too hung up on that stuff. I have
what works for you.
I had a directory that has a folder that has 55 RiverPod providers in it because it's just I put everything with RiverPod in the same directory. Big deal. I mean, it works.
Yeah, do what works for you.
State. Yeah.
I mean, George brought up a point further back in the chat, I think, about how, if you're working in a big company, there's going to be some rules and the ways that things have to be done to make it easy for many developers to work on a project at once. But if you're doing it yourself, do what works for you. I mean, if you like it organized one way and you're the only one working on it, great. Do what works.
That's actually the time to experiment and try different ones, I think.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is, as long as you have the rule, you have your convention. As long as everyone sticks to it, then everyone can understand the code and work with it.
I actually disagree with you a little bit, George, on that, on the one that was just put up there. Yeah, basically, when you're working on your own, not sticking to a convention is fine. I actually think that's the opportunity. You should be learning conventions and trying them out.
But that's what I mean. I think that's what he means by that. Like not sticking, not sticking to convention is fine if you're an indie developer.
Right. But I think that you're not doing yourself any favors if you're just all over the place and you're not finding.
I think there's a cross purpose here. A project that you're working on should be consistent, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
What we're saying here is don't stick to that convention always. You need to learn lots. I think that's the difference.
Project could be different. Absolutely, I agree with that. But I'm just saying it's. I was reading that just sort of like saying Wild Wild West, and I don't think that. I think that for any project, you ought to be putting some thought into how you're doing it if it's got any complexity at all.
Yeah.
So I was just trying to hunt down what came out in 3.7.11.
11. Yeah, the changelog, if it's not updated, won't be useful. But changelog.md usually has the updates.
Okay, apparently half the press 3.7.11 release failed to push packaging artifacts.
Ooh, that's bad.
Oh, that's
So the pipeline, I think, broke.
Oh no.
Yeah, don't go jumping on this right now because you might be having to roll back. So
Uh-oh.
Does Puro have a rollback command for you there, Randall?
Yes, you can say Puro. You can say Puro. Use any version you want. So you say Puro. You use 3.7.10.
Yeah, we could do. I just
Git diff. Yeah, we can do that.
Nah.
Yeah,
it depends.
I have the
Everything
SDK here. It's yeah. Usually changelog MD has some data, but it's okay. It'll eventually make all the presses somewhere. Let's see if the Flutter or the Discord has data on it. It's always a good place to
Well,
check.
I mean, we've run out of questions,
Anyway.
so if you want your questions, then we've got 50 minutes show, or we could just jump into a little bit of live coding, perhaps. Try typing some things in.
Yeah, we were going to do something last week. We didn't get to. What was it? I don't even remember.
I think we did some stuff in the chat, didn't we?
Yeah, we did a little bit like early. We kind of mixed it in early. I think. But
I mean, if anyone remembers, we can give it a go. Sure. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what.
No, I don't remember
what it was now. Let me see if I can just get set up here.
The announcement just hit on the Flutter Discord. That's interesting.
Yeah, James is slow day. Yes, there not as many questions as we typically get. Usually, Randall's yelling at people that were done taking questions.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, we kind of announced the show quite late. I think, I think we should schedule. Probably start scheduling the next show right after this show, so that way because there's a whole week.
We have said that at least twice before.
I don't know what you're talking about. That's never been said before.
I could swear. I wish I had tape. I wish I had tape of you saying this before.
It's literally in the show. You can watch the shows back.
Now this time it's in the show. Right, exactly. We can always refer to this moment. Time marker 146. Okay, you can go back and have Simon says we will plan next week's show starting tomorrow. Yes.
So
right after.
Simon's good enough to edit that out. So
he's
what are we talking about?
Just need to write a
what was that? There was
tool to go post every hour for the next 166 hours.
Right.
Yeah.
How many hours is it?
With a countdown.
166. Yes, it's 166 from now as we'll start warming up the next show and probably announcing the next show in about 166 hours too.
I mean, the thing is,
anyway,
hour before the show.
I will say, in terms of planning, I would like to start doing more Dart 3 shows. So I want to see if I can do some work in the meanwhile during the week and maybe come up with something that I can live code to demo. I'd like to build the either class from functional programming using patterns. I think that'd be really cool to show either with left and right and show map and
you do
whatever the
you should have to do when. Right, with the new switch statement.
And when. Right. Yep. I'm cutting out.
Yeah, I saw that.
Is that Simon cutting out? Simon cutting out?
Yeah,
Simon.
Okay. Well, Simon's finding a way to get out of the show without us saying get out of the show.
He pulled his internet plug.
Well,
there he goes.
He's probably making the best.
He started torrenting. That's the problem. You got to turn your torrents off during the show.
Yeah,
that's very important.
No, do you know what? Do you know what did that? Starting up an IDE.
Oh yeah, that'll do it. That'll do it. Cool.
Is anybody making notes
it's like,
as to what the
text everything? Thanks.
You know, we've got Roa's
what do we want to
stuff with
what
happened to code reviews? People need to suggest their code to be reviewed.
Right.
It's up to y'all to have code reviews.
We did that. We did that like 2 weeks ago, right? Or 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago when Simon
really
had the code that we did. Yeah,
it was fun. It was good, but I think it was 4 weeks ago because time goes quickly. So I'm pretty sure it's not 3 or not 2.
Yeah,
just because that's a while back.
That's several good suggestions for upcoming shows.
Flutter's new element embedding. What the heck is Flutter's new element?
They talked about it at Flutter Forward. That's the web stuff where HTML elements.
Oh,
put the code in there.
From the Flutter Forward,
Flutter Forward, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead.
No, Matul just put that in there. I think we were doing something with connectivity last time. That was one of the.
Well, that was when it was in the.
Yeah.
Not yet. Well, there might be.
Check for app conformity to iOS. Oh, that would be interesting, though, right? Like, I'm pretty sure everyone would buy into that just to not have to deal with the hassle, right? But the problem here is you cannot. The question here, right, for me, for that is it going to be AI in terms of it says you're compliant, but you're not actually compliant, or you're not compliant, but you actually are compliant, right? Like, it's down to interpretation. A lot of these guidelines as well. So I think
fuzzy logic.
And this is a follow-up to 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. We did Connectivity Plus.
No. It was like we were talking about editing the Connectivity Plus package.
Right, and I found out you don't need to edit it. The Connectivity Plus, if you just listen to the stream provides as its very first immediate event what your current state is. So you don't need to go separately and go get the state and then come back and read the stream. You can just read the stream and you already get an immediate event that is the current state. So that's cool.
Right.
Good to know that about Connectivity Plus. Yay.
And it looks like there's a couple more questions come through. So.
Yep.
I'll let you pick that one up, Randall.
Okay, let's see here. What is hot restart? Do something like hot reload instead? Well, it does for the web because there is no hot restart on the. Wait, sometimes a hot reload?
Yeah,
hot restart sometimes does a hot reload. That doesn't make any sense.
That's backwards.
No.
So what they're saying very.
You might mean it the other way around. Might mean the other way around. Then it would make sense.
Sometimes I've did it twice, but I've not run into that.
No,
never seen it.
No,
I have to click 2 times in a row on hot restart.
Yeah, sometimes.
To do what?
To get it to restart. They're saying they hit it once, and they're saying it's doing a reload instead of a restart.
Never seen it do that.
The only thing I've ever seen is sometimes it'll act like it's you may think you're doing something, but I'm not clicking the button then for it. But like when you go save code, you can end up with errors in your code. It doesn't actually go do it.
Yeah. So it will fail to build, and it will tell you in the log it failed to build. It didn't hot reload. Or also you might see that the kernel changed. So if you switched to something that's experienced me, I switched Flutter versions whilst live editing a Flutter app, and that's kind of a no-no. So suddenly the code is like, the version of the code that you sent is completely different because you've changed, versions of Dart. That can also happen. But I think the thing here, hot reload just updates the code, your state remains, right? That's what's good about Flutter. Hot restart just restarts your application. Go, Randall. I'll let you take the.
Okay. Let's see. Let's do the current comment and let's see here. Was there any other ones? There's also we sort of said, well, maybe it's the web, and they're talking confusing hot reload, hot restart, but there was the other one down here that I think kind of answered it. So we have like sometimes if you do a hot reload in the background, it'll ignore the hot restart. Okay, that's possible. I don't know if I've seen that with VSC, but maybe I don't bother doing that many restarts.
Sure.
It starts a hot reload in the background. What was it? It starts a hot reload in the background.
Oh, sorry.
It ignores the hot restart. I mean, yeah, if it's already doing one or the other, it won't. It will just ignore the new operation till the current one's finished, and then it will start accepting the presses. That's always been the case.
Right, and the reload might be happening automatically if you save code.
It's because because hot reload or hot restart cannot be cancelled. Right? It's a one-way operation. It can't be cancelled halfway through, basically.
Yep.
So you have to just wait till it finishes.
Yep. All right. So that's that one. Anything else that's interesting here? Well, I will answer this. Why do you say Dart is not enterprise ready? Why? What evidence do you have for that? Because that's probably evidence we can challenge. Dart is clearly enterprise.
You won't be booted out ever, James. I think this might be in relation to backend, maybe.
But
there's enterprise
coming
millions
along.
of users around.
Yeah,
there's millions of users in the world using Flutter, right?
Simon's
huge apps. So enterprise ready, maybe not that.
Yeah.
Simon's trying to reload and restart at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. That'll do it. That'll do it.
Yeah, James is a great supporter of the show, but I am surprised every single week he's not booted out. Got to say that.
Okay. Maybe like that. We do have a queue. There's a queue here. Let's see. What's this here?
Oh.
White label.
Published automatically. So basically a script to swap out.
In iOS and Android without any manual work. It just yes, there is. It's Fastlane.
Yeah.
Fastlane is a scripting system that lets you publish apps. Exactly that. One word, Fastlane. And then also you can use things like CodeMagic and other things and make one command, one script that runs CodeMagic.
Right. Cool. All right, so that's enough of that.
I think the problem is you need to look up CI. You need to look up continuous integration, continuous deployment to be specific. But everything to do with deployment can be scripted. So, yes, is the answer to that.
And we can argue this one. Let's see. It's all what we have so far is what we have, and parts of it are hard to compromise.
I'm kind of curious, like this interesting point. It says he's not as good as Rust or Swift, specifically Rust. And I'm like, how is it better? In what way?
Yeah.
That's what I'd like to know. What specific way are you considering it better? Are you just saying objectively it's better? Because that's arguable. But if you've got a specific instance, you're saying this is better because of X, Y, Z, yes, then we'll look into that. I think because the thing is, like, how can I don't know how an implementation of null safety can be better than another in terms of you can't use null. That's null safety. Like, you have operators to do it. Is that specific instance? Like,
are all
tooling
nulls equal? Are all nulls equal?
Or is it something like tooling? Better tooling to help, or
tooling
something.
Yep.
Sound null safety, James said. Well, we have sound null safety now. That's the whole point of this.
We do.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
yep.
James was talking about Dart as a backend. So it's right. I'm gonna say yes and no to that one. I'm gonna say yes, it is ready because it depends on what you're doing, right? But conversely, I think there's a lot more in terms of libraries and support that can go into the backend. But that's why the communities come together. That's why Dart Flutter exists. That's why all these solutions exist, because Dart as a backend is still a new thing, right? But there's no reason why you can't make APIs and do certain things.
And I don't want to interrupt, but I have to have a hard out at the top of the hour, so I'm definitely out of here right now so I can get prepped for that meeting.
Same here.
And see you all in 166 hours. So it's been fun today.
I'll be here too.
See you.
All right.
I got to go too. So thanks, everybody.
See you.
See you.
Oh, sorry. Thanks, Danielle. There was two. All right. Well, we can. I've got ready for live coding here, so we'll do a little bit. What do we want to see? What do we want to do? I don't know. Like, let's share. The
Yeah, I don't know.
Let's see if we can get this hooked up. There we go. Is everyone seeing what I'm seeing?
I see your screen.
That's good. That's a good start. So I know, like let's. I guess I was talking about that scroll stuff. Maybe we could talk about how to do custom scrolling. That's not relating to the current stuff. Maybe show how to make an infinite scroll.
Oh yeah,
Does that sound interesting? We could do that.
No,
Dart
backend. As a backend. Well, that would require some more setup.
I'm gonna say no right now, just because I'm not set up to do that, and that requires set up your a cloud project and lots of stuff. It takes time. However, I will mention that I did do that in a Flutter Boring Show episode, 3 episodes with Craig Lebenz. So that's there. You can go watch it, and we actually take it from ground zero, not doing anything at the very beginning. So you can. That's 3 hours. You can go watch that and get started. In fact, that was quite interesting because we actually did WebSockets and communication between server nodes and things like that in 3 hours. It was quite a challenge. How to configure? So someone said, how continue the white labeling? How to configure Firebase JSON to automatically for white label app? You don't. You have to deploy the JSON file with each application. There you go. That's the answer to that one. So each app is going to be deployed. So then, if you're doing one code base, then you would have to overwrite those JSON files as part of your build pipeline, right? So you would output different JSON files based on the build, and that's one way of dealing with it. Another way is to have different packages, one for each of your white label products that all share the same common Flutter code, but each one has their own JSON files in, and that also works. Right. So I'm going to answer this one briefly. It did not have a queue in front of it. Make sure your questions have a queue in front. How can I do peer-to-peer connection in video conferencing? It's exactly that. What you do is you have a server that you exchange your ports and your IP addresses on, and then each peer can send data straight to that IP address and port using UDP, and that's it. You just take the video frames, you compress them, and you send them, and then the other end receives them, decompresses them, and displays them. Now you've got peer-to-peer video conferencing. There's literally, I can only explain it in simple terms because there's no way you can explain that in any more simple terms, in complex terms, right? There's libraries, there's all sorts out there to do just that. So, all right, let's do some inference. I guess, what's the web standard? It's WebRTC standard. However, that obviously doesn't work on desktop or apps and so on. There is, I think the standard actually is about. I don't know. I need to go look at the details. I forget, but the standards are all more around the web browser and the API of the web browser, not necessarily the implementation of the communication channel. But I don't see a reason if there is part of the communication standard using that. But there already is standards for communication channels. That is RTMP for real-time media protocol, RTSP, and RTP. And these are all protocols that have been around for years, and they all deal with stop, play, pause, sending encoded data packets, decoding data packets. All this is all in the standards. You go look them up. There's also libraries that implement all this for you, and they're also there for a reason. All right, infinite scroll. Let's go with infinite scroll. I'm going to take my earbuds out because I get a bit warm in my ears. Hopefully, you don't get an echo, but we'll see. We'll get the audio back. Are you there?
Yeah. Yep. We got you.
Okay, you get an echo of yourself?
No.
Okay, that's good. Don't shout too loud. Right. Let's I
do have a machine making noise here.
Sorry, what did you say? What did you say?
I have a machine in the background that seems to be making noise and it's driving.
I can't hear it, so.
Okay, well that's good.
Isolation, earbuds. I don't know. Well,
Yeah.
let's do it. Right. So first of all, we want an example. So let's first of all go with an example of having a. We're talking about. So someone mentioned a calendar, right? A calendar.
Yeah. Infinite
Right. Okay,
scrolling calendars. Yeah.
Let's do a quick example of that, and then we're going to change it to be our own. Who was it? Do you remember who asked about the calendar?
No, I can go back and find it though.
Well, speak up if you're the person and you're still here, because obviously you'll get a lot from this. We'll try doing that. Oh, me, Richard. Hello, Richard. Of course it's you. Sorry.
Yeah.
Too many questions, not enough answers. Is it 3 over 2? 3.2, 3 over 2. Oops. And is this big enough for everyone? Hopefully you can see.
Yeah, I think it's good.
Hopefully you can see the code. I guess I can make it a bit bigger. Right. So, and we'll do a decorated box. This is going to be awful. No, we can do this. This border. It's border or box border? I forget. Bottom. Border side. That in fact color. To be good people, I suppose, and say divide it. Whoops. Divide a color. Be good people and quickly grab that. Final. Ooh, do we have a material app? We don't. We'll sort that in a second. Theme of this is going to completely break, of course, because we don't have a theme. Add that in just 2 seconds. Right, so this is a box. Is it box border? No, it's a decoration. So decorate box decoration that has a border on it, doesn't it? Yeah, that works. Right. Okay. And now it's going to break right now because I put this in the wrong place. So let's pull this out here and make a. Just bring this down a level just for simplicity for demonstration, and pop that in there. And what we'll do is say return zero app of that debug banner and use the home as the home. This just gets us into a place where a bit of boilerplate just to kind of get things going. All right, so let's see. Okay, there's thin lines. They're not very visible. So let's make them ultra visible for demonstration purposes again. 5. I know, is that going to be bigger? Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. I cannot scroll.
Let's see.
Oh, because
there it
it's
is.
not a drag scroll because I'm not on Android. I'm on desktop. So I'm scrolling my mouse. It scrolls if I scroll with my mouse. So let's fix that. Yeah. This is a little trick that not many people know. So we'll fix that in here. So we'll say theme. Let's do dark. Should we do a dark theme? Like theme data.dark or something, isn't it? Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Now it should mean that I can do copy with, and I'm going to set is it platform? Yeah, target platform. What the hell? Target platform Android. I believe this is going to be what I want. Yes, it's not const, sure. So a little trick here, hopefully. No, it didn't give me the input. What did I forget? No, that should work.
Yeah.
Oh no, let's just override at the beginning. Maybe there's something else is going on here. The flag's being copied. Debug default target platform override target platform Android. That'll change the behavior overall rather than just on the theme. Let's see how that goes. Restart. Oh, I can't click and drag, so they've changed something, because I'm pretty sure that would always work. I want to hunt it down now, because I really want drag. I really want to use drag. I thought you've always... There must be a gesture. Hang on, let's have a look. Think about that. There's... it's like isn't there like an override on input on desktop? I seem to remember there is. There's two, definitely one for selection and focus, and I think there's another one on type of input. Touch. Hang on. You know what? I'm gonna have to hunt this down now. We're gonna go a little adventure. So when you use a gesture detector and you do an on tap, in fact we can do we actually want to do it's the vertical one, so that would be on vertical drag.
Vertical drag, yeah.
So on vertical drag down, this callback is passed over to a raw gesture detector somewhere. Here we go. And this populates the gestures this will listen to, and then these are passed over the gesture factories, which are these are passed over to the gesture detector. So a vertical drag gesture recognizer is the particular one we're looking at here, and I'm guessing pointed device kind. That is the important bit here. So to be clear, I'm using a mouse and not a finger, so it doesn't work with the kind of like expected kind of finger motion movement on scrolling, which is expected. I'm half thinking I want to just start an emulator up, but we'll have a look at this. So pointed device kind is the magical thing, is fling gesture. Kind compute hit slot, but this doesn't seem to... Okay, so mouse. So pointed device kind mouse, then it's precise. Otherwise, it uses touch slot. Makes sense, but that doesn't really help us. Let's go on. Let's keep going down the rabbit hole here. Somewhere there's an override. I know there is, but I can't remember where because I've used it before. We're going to go hunting. Yeah, let's see. So this is the underlying class. And let's see here. Is fling gesture? I for the life of me, I can't remember where it is. The other way we can actually tackle this would be the Flutter widgets binding, Flutter binding, which is the sort of the bit that starts everything up. Oh look! Oh, there you go. Look, add scroll configuration with a drag scroll behavior. Thank you, Mike. I knew there was something I was missing. But that is actually controlled, so you can actually. The drag, was it drag? Yeah, scroll configuration is a widget, and this is implemented for us, isn't it? Yeah. I'm curious though. I know there's a place where it overrides it, and I know you can override it. It's going to bug me though. Scroll behavior. The drag scroll behavior is built in one, right? Wrapped scroll behavior. Oh, wrapped scroll behavior. Interesting. I don't know what that is. I'm just kind of curious. Yeah, this is where it overrides it all. But this is based on the default target platform. This is why I thought would make the change. I'm just curious here, apparently it's using material 3 overrides. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so scroll behavior, where was it? I've lost it here. Scroll behavior. So there's a drag scroll behavior. You need to make a drag scroll behavior that extends material scroll behavior like that. I know there's a better way than this. Okay, let's just do that. Drag scroll. Thank you, Mike. Behavior. Can't type. And then we want to override something probably. Adds which pointer devices are used. Right, so there's a check the tweet link.
Yeah.
I don't see a tweet link. Sorry, links aren't posted.
No, yeah.
Sorry, Mike.
Or did Mike
fail through this? Let's have a look. Scroll behavior. I remember doing this before, but I'm pretty sure there's actually, drag. Okay, so drag point device, drag devices. Right. So when we wait, does that mean we can? Is there a super here? Am I missing something? There's a copy with, in which case I could just make an instance of it and just copy it with, right? Doesn't that actually have to be a? Yeah, see, this is not passed in, so we can just do a copy with. So that if we take a material scroll behavior, the copy with. Okay. I'm curious. Let's just do. Copy with, drag devices. Yeah. And then we can say that this includes mouse, pointer device kind. Mouse. That's what I'm gathering from this. Now, this can't be made constant. That's fine. So then I'll just chuck that up the top. This is going really hacky right now, but whatever. Let's do it. And why is drag devices? This is set. That's why. Right, that do. Does it work? Does it blend? It blends.
Hey.
There is actually a way of overriding that without doing that. I know there is. I've done it before. But for the life of me, I can't remember. But it works. It does the job for our example, so I'm not going to complain. I'm pretty sure if we were going to hunt it down in the base gesture binding here, this is where basically the pointer events actually enter Flutter in the gesture binding. And this is actually where the actual data packets come in, where the gesture arena is run from. This handles everything to do with pointer input. And I believe there's a way of overriding it, but I'm not going to go hunting for it right now. Thanks. Yeah. So let's move on. Right. So now we have this list. This is wonderful, right? And I can fling it. Wonderful. We don't have any references to which cell is which, so let's put that in here. So we get given an index. So we'll add a child center and the text of index, and we'll give it a huge style, a text style of font size. What was looking at 64 before, color. This because it's 4K, right? It's stupidly large, and we can change scales and stuff with this. This will get us to the point we need to be for an example. Again, like do as I say, not as I do. Right. Yay, we have a number that we can see.
There we go.
So now we can scroll, and you can see I can scroll through all these things. Wonderful. But what we can't do at the moment is scroll past 0 in the negative. So we can't go back in history. We're going to go forward in history. Now we could we could make a scroll control and say, okay, your initial scroll position is 200,000 or whatever, right? But it would have to calculate that position, right? By laying out all the widgets is not what we want. So there's a few ways around this.
Do you want to? There's a question. Do you want to answer the question? Ma is asking, what's the reason for the material widget? Yeah. Because we don't have a scaffold. We need something.
Yeah, at the top level, you need something. The material app does actually host one itself, I believe. Normally, you want a surface, so it's either material or scaffold. Because it gives you certain properties like default text style and some other things. But strictly speaking, it's not required. I'll just show you what happens if you probably do it without. There you go. We get this lovely red. If you ever see a red text with a yellow double on. I think it was originally a double underline. No, it is a double underline. You just can't see it. It's really big. They're really fat underlines. Anyway, with a double underline, then that's because you don't have the default text style, and so the text widget itself looks that up. Now, if I was to override this, we would get some default behavior, but again, look, double underline, because the default's not there. So by adding the material, we're guaranteeing to have a default text style set from the theme. However, you don't have to do that. You can set your own default. It's called default text style is the widget, and you can just set your own. If I set default text style here with text style, I don't know, blank text style, I don't know, font family, Roboto, whatever. That should be enough to, if I run that now, there you go. Now we have Roboto, font size 64 white, without material. Material does do a few other little things, especially when it comes to like splashes for input. But again, it's all material design. You can do whatever you want. You're not limited. Hope that helps.
Yep. When you get some coloring and stuff too.
Right.
You get some colors and stuff with material.
Oh yeah. Talking about that, this might be easier to look at if we add some colors. Why don't we can do a little trick here. We can say colors, material colors dot material, colors dot primaries, something like that. Yeah, colors dot primaries. And then if we're very clever about this, we can take the index, look that up. Now that would overflow. That would cause problems if we didn't use the length of the array to look that up. So now we can never go out the bounds of the primaries, and it will just keep repeating.
Yep.
So now we get this lovely rainbow effect. Yay. And it will just keep going round and round and round in circles for each of the colors. So I don't know. Is that good? I don't know. You could make it
from a UI perspective, no, but for the sample, yeah.
I mean, you could do something like index. We could also do something like this. Maybe, I don't know. We could do something ridiculous like at work. No, we can multiply it actually by like some big number, and then that would give us a sort of less than sort of exact sort of flow of colors, which we could choose whatever random number that outputs the best, but then at least you don't get shades that are like just shades of color one after the other. But I don't know. Yeah, there's lots of ways of doing that. Right. So okay, so we got our little example, and we want to go above 0. We want to go into negative. So I think I mentioned this earlier, that the physics, the scroll physics, is actually the thing that controls that. And you can say always scrollable physics. And guess what? That won't limit you. That will just he says, not work apparently. And just check what we're doing. Apparently, it no longer works. So either I'm not thinking about this right, or something's changed. Let's just have a quick look here. Yeah, because you've got your bounce and scroll physics. Let's just have a look at bounce and scroll physics here. The behaviors might be there's being overridden, I guess. No, that's bounce.
Yeah.
And never
scroll.
Should, funny enough, just not let me scroll, right? Which is correct.
Yep.
I think so. I think they considered it above in ways to go out of bounds, and they made it. But this is now the same as clamp scroll, so I'm kind of feeling that's going to. Because this is clamp scroll. This is clamps to the end and gives you the overflow. So I'm gonna let's look at the documentation for always and just see what it says.
Great.
Let's just use a scroll. This overrides the default behavior, which is disable scrolling when there's no content to scroll. It does not override the handling of overscroll.
Oh wait! On Android, overscrolls will be clamped by default and result in the glow. So that's what you're seeing.
wait, what? Hang on. On Android, underscores will be clamped by default and result will underscore glow on our items with spring. All right. So yeah, they changed the behavior. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyway,
Yep.
it doesn't matter because it wouldn't work, and that's what I wanted to show you. So it wouldn't solve the problem.
Right.
So what is it that that list view is actually doing for us here? It means that when you get to a certain position on the screen, it wants to render some widgets. What we want to do is recreate this. Now, the way you can do this, you can do this with built-in widgets, or we can do this from the ground up. And both are still complicated, but they're not as complicated, right? And again, this is because this is not an expected use case. No, it's not a primary use case for most apps. So, all right. So first of all, we're going to completely do this list view builder without list view, right? And it's actually simpler than you think. It sounded more complicated than it actually is. First of all, we're going to take our little item here and we're going to remove that out. We'll call it, to keep things simple, we'll call it like list item.
List item. Yeah.
Like that. Oops. And then it's going to have, we need an index. That's the only parameter that we need. And we want to return that index. And we can now bring our theme down, so it's not needed outside. Yep, so that does enough to keep our list item. And now this simplifies our out here. Restart, and it's exactly the same. This is good. So, what is next is the question. That divider, interesting. It's like a semi-transparent color.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I'm complaining. It's interesting.
Can you make it just black or something?
Yeah, I'm just actually thinking maybe that we should.
So that something that
Be white 4.
there. Yeah.
There's a bit clearer delineation between them, right? You can see how you use the stuff from the theme. The other thing we could have actually just done, let's leave this theme in there as an example, and then I'll show you what you do. Go up here, find our theme, and I'm just going to copy with and hard code it in here as divider theme, divider colors white. There's plenty of ways of doing that. Probably not the best way to kind of do it in line, but same output, same result. We just changed the divider color across the entire app if we had lots of screens to white. All right, moving on. So we have this list view item. So to build a list view, if we go look at what list view is under the hood, a list view is a scrolling box. I think it's called box scroll view. That's the one. And a box scroll view is a scroll view. And a scroll view is a stateless widget. So if we scroll down, this is just going to be like any other widget that you could make, right? So we just go further down here and go past all this documentation, which I'm very glad that they put in there. It has a build viewport, which builds this viewport widget with some of the parameters you gave it. And it calls that inside of a scrollable. That is it. That is your entire thing. There's some stuff around here about notifications and stuff we don't care about right now for purposes of demonstration, but really it's just a scrollable. If we change this to a scrollable requires a viewport builder. And let's just take out item builder out. There's our viewport builder. Now this viewport offset comes from render. Just import that in. And this wants us to return, fun enough, a widget. Right? So we could just return any widget, like doesn't matter. We can now viewport offset is a change notifier, and we just listen to that. And once the scroll position changes, we can read it from pixels. That's how you can make your own custom scrolling, do whatever you want. And there's actually quite cool things you can do with that. You can set the viewport dimensions and so on. It's how all the scrolling stuff works. Now in here, we're going to add a viewport. Now, viewport is the magical one. And this only needs one thing, which is the viewport offset. And this had a few other parameters, but we'll leave that in a second. We'll leave that for now. In here, we're going to make a new class and call it a stateless. Let's make it stateless and just call it infinite scroll, infinite list view. No, it's just whatever. And infinite list view, our custom infinite list view is going to be this scrollable. Yeah. And our infinite list view is going to take a item builder. And I can't remember what I did for item builder now, so do I have a hotkey to give that back? I'm pretty sure I do somewhere. Hang on. Item builder.
Yep. And
next widget builder. So I think that's the indexed builder, something like that. Okay, so now all I've done is to just sub that out, and it's just so that we can replace it with list view or infinite list view and see the difference. And so here in scroll viewport, we're going to use item builder and pass that across. The paste context, that's Control Shift V in mine, and it gives you the history of all your copy pastes. And you press the number and it on the keyboard, and it pastes that number. And then it puts that as your most recent paste. Someone else in the chat. Right. So what's next? So we want to have slivers. This is the interesting thing. So viewport is literally the parent of multi-child render object widget. This is the thing that actually does slivers. So custom scroll view does this as well under the hood. So if we go back to, I actually lost my place. So let me go back to list view, and we go to box scroll view and scroll view. And it's down here. They actually have this build. I've completely lost it, but I know it's here. Build slivers. Build. It's build slivers, and this is the underlying implementation of scroll view. And what happens inside box scroll view, it implements build slivers as this, which does some fancy things for the padding and so on, but really it does build child layout, and that is not implemented. And finally, in list view, that's where build child layout is. And here is the magical layout, which is a sliver list with a child delegate. That's what we put in as our sliver. Yeah. So we just disassociating all those different levels of hierarchy on in sort of the built-in widgets, and we're just doing our own, right? And just bring it together to one. So this one's a delegate, and this is a sliver child delegate. We want to build a delegate because we're using a widget builder, and the first parameter of that is our item builder, so we can just use item builder and pass that across. Second parameter would be our child count, and we could actually put in a limit. Since this is infinite, we don't put a limit in there. So now we have a sliver list of things, and if I just restart now, guess what? It looks exactly the same. And guess what? It works exactly the same. Yeah, so we actually have not, we've just done these three widgets here is what a list view is under the hood. It passes some other parameters, of course, like you saw, some of these other parameters you might pass into list view, but in essence, it's this. So now what we can do is essentially create, if we were to, let's think about this, create two on top of each other and get the viewport offset. I think there's some things here I'm thinking about. Let's see what we can do. I've done this before. So So let's have a think about this. So if we had a sliver list, 2 sliver lists, and this was a subbed off builder with index, theoretically we could do item builder context negative index question mark. This is not going to work as I expect, but so that's going down. But the controlling of the scroll is actually outside of our sliver list. So although we want to do this, we actually need 2 viewports. So we wrap our viewport in a stack. We should, in theory, be able to put 2 viewports in. One on top of the other, one with the negative, one with the positive. Let's see how that's obviously going to look terrible, right? But we're getting there. We'll step by step. And then the negative one, we want to anchor to the end. Okay. So they're actually on top of each other. So we're going to need to move the top one to the one side. So we'll wrap that with it. This is just, again, debugging as we're building it. We're going to translate, transform,
yeah.
Translate, and move it over, I don't know, 100 units, 100 pixels, pips, whatever. Okay. Let's do. Maybe not that much. What's wrong with this picture? Hello. That's interesting. So, very interesting. So, anchor is 1.0.
Oh, are you well?
Okay, I need to make these half width. We need to make this half the width because I can't see the numbers right now.
Yeah.
So, what do we want to do here? Let's make.
But you don't want the anchor on that one to be 1, right? Yet that'd be the bottom of the screen. Is where it's going to start.
We'll get there in a second. Let me do this so we can see it, so people know what we're actually looking at here. So top left, and then our width factor 0.5. Should do what I want. Yeah. So okay. So on the right hand side is our standard viewport, which is the standard build delegate with the item builder. And when I scroll, there it's there. And then we've got another viewport with the index numbers going from 0 down. So I guess we actually want what, -1 minus index. Okay, so it starts on -1.
Yeah.
Okay, and then obviously the scrolling in the same direction, but we actually want it so when we scroll down, we see the negative on the top side, right? So the anchor is is definitely in the wrong place.
Yeah, it should be 0, right?
Also,
and then going reverse.
There was a way of stacking this the other way. So let's have a quick look here. What does it say about anchor? So let's go look up the documentation. That's what it's there for. Let's use it. Viewport widget is meant to be bigger. A widget that's bigger on the inside. I like it. Right. Visual work calls the scrolling machinery. So subset here. Yeah. Hosts a bi-directional list. Hosts a bi-directional list of slivers anchored on the center sliver, which is placed at the 0 scroll offset. The center widget is displayed in the viewport according to the anchor property. Okay. Growth direction forward. Hang on a minute. Is there a growth direction? There's a down. Okay, so what do I reckon? That
you want your axis.
I think I know what's going on here. We need the axis. The default axis direction is down.
Yeah.
So let's add
the other one
here. Axis direction down. Then we want an axis direction of up.
Up, yeah.
On this one.
But I think your anchor, you need to just take that out, right?
Yeah, let's have a look. See what
I don't think we need it.
Oh. What fun we have. That's interesting. Okay, there's a question that's come in. Why not a column? Because a column would instantiate every widget. You would have to have every widget.
Yeah.
So you could do this for, let's say each one of these numbers or each one of these widgets here was a calendar month. Then you would have 12. But what happens if we want to do 10 years, 20 years? Suddenly, like, you want to keep scrolling based on the time. Eventually, if you kept scrolling, you go back to the ages of the Romans, right? That's the nature of this, right? You want it to scroll. You don't want it to create all that stuff because it's memory intensive. But this is fun. If we put the anchor of, I'm just kind of curious. I'm just having fun here. Let's see what happens. I'll put the anchor as -1 on this one. Does this mean that can't do minus numbers? So all right, so we could, however, do 0.5, 0.5, right? And then that would do that.
Yeah, because you're at 0 is the top and 1's the bottom of the screen. So
I'm just having some fun here with it. There you go. Right. Okay. So the problem here is that we don't right now. I mean, you can anchor it wherever you want, and we could pass that across so that they're joined like this. That's fine. But yeah, the axis direction growing up, but when I scroll, it's going in the wrong direction, right? So is there another? I mean, we have a cross-axis direction, which is interesting. So I guess that's just RTL, LTR, right? So that's just that just essentially sets that. So I don't think in here that there's anything else. Interesting. I don't think there's anything else that we really want to populate here. What I was going to say is, can we create a viewport offset? I don't see a reason why we couldn't create a viewport offset that listens to the original viewport offset and inverts the number. So one this thing's just scrolling in one direction, the other thing's just scrolling the other.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I've done this before, and I'm pretty sure I have. I want to like repeat the. So. See if I can find what I did before as reference, just because we got this far and I don't want to be here forever. Yeah, I did do this. So let's have a quick look here. I'm looking at my previous code. So let me show you what I've actually done before. As we're here and we're looking at it. So basically, create my own scroll controller, and that gives a custom scroll position. The scroll position is a viewport offset, or implements viewport offset, should I say? And then this, when it builds the viewport, it builds a negative scrolling position at that time, and that this position always essentially goes in the negative direction. And that is what's passed over, and then it listens to the original offset and forces the negative of that to the other viewport, thus flipping them around, as you can see here. So, I mean, we could do that briefly. There wasn't the direction I actually wanted to do the coding example. And again, like this will just keep going, right? But obviously, we have a stop point, which is where they're going to right now in the middle.
Yep.
So let's quickly. I think we'll just quickly, briefly do that since we're here and it's the way it would work. And I've got some reference code, so why not, as they say. So the idea here is that, I'm just going to briefly copy what we've got before. And that gets us to a place where we need to. This gives us the parent scrollable widget that's there. And then this is suggesting that we can create a so I'll quickly briefly do this down here, and that is a negative scroll position. Extends a scroll position to context. That's like the inbuilt platform one, and put all the super things, super duper. They're the required parameters. Initial pixels is also something that we want to force in negative. Context, physics, initial pixel. Okay, and then I guess what we can do is override force pixels, force it in negative. Sounds right to me. Oh, we need. We actually need. Yeah, we need this. I'm guessing actually that this is probably use negative. And call this. Let's just briefly call this infinite. So what we're saying here is the minimum is negative and maximum, so it never like stops, right? Then what we're saying is if use negative, when you do force scroll, we'll force it into negative, else we'll just call the super normal. So when it tries to get scrolled, it will scroll in the inverse direction. Whether or not this works, that's a good thing in this case, we'll find out. And then let's see. So now we need two of these, or one of these we'll do. We're going to need, I guess, two in this situation. Do we need a scroll? That's a good point, actually. Let me have a quick look at what I've done previously. I think we might need a custom scroll control. You have to get away with not doing it. Yeah, we can get away with not doing it. So, all right. So what we're going to do here is just say positive, this one, this, negative, and then this is going to require our initial pixels to be the current offset. I think we can probably get that from position, actually.
Simon, I hate to leave you all alone, but I've got to jump in a car, so
no worries. Thank you for joining us.
Well, I will.
It's got a bit longer than I thought, but I want to finish this off, and I think people.
Yeah, I'm gonna
interested.
Catch the end just so I can see what you did, because I've never had to solve this particular problem, so it'll be interesting.
All right, cool.
All right. See you guys. See you next week. Yeah.
Cool. Right, we'll do context as well. Anyone still here? Is it just us chickens? Right, context is being passed out, but that should be fine. So I think finally use negative false. Boom. And hopefully, so that's fine. That's on positive. Right. So This is our negative one. And this is our positive one. Okay. What did I break? It no longer scrolls at all. This is what I get. That'd be correct because I forgot to add the listeners. So let's do that. This is definitely not the right way to do this. I'm just kind of hacking it in there. Because we're going to add some listeners, but we should really clean up these listeners. So we want to say position, which is the original. Viewport offset. We want to listen to that change. And then we're going to want to pass that change on to positive. Force scroll, force pixels, position pixels, and negative. Obviously negate it here and then get rid of that boolean, I guess. Right, I'm gonna restart. And it completely blew up, but let's find out what's going on here. Null check, min scroll extent. Interesting. Let's have a look. Restart. And maybe I do have to create my own scroll controller then after all. I think so. I think what's happening here is I'm passing the wrong context. We just pass the context here to see if that needs a certain type. I think this needs to be a scroll context, which is to be in scroll state, so that should work. What did I do wrong? TikTok tech. This strictly isn't correct, but it should still work. See if I can spot anything else quickly while I'm here. Otherwise, I can do this a slightly different way, but I think. Oh yeah, didn't do that, did I? But that's fine. It's really because I'm overriding this the positive one. So I think we'll create a quick scroll controller. Scroll controller. This has a create. Let's always return an infinite scroll. This is what normally returns, which is already what we have, right? So we're just extending this, right, to change the behavior. So we'll pass all these over. So we've got physics, context, pixels, keep scroll, make them all required, why not? Keep scroll, and required position. And we'll just pass them over. Do I want them required? No, I don't want them. No. Debug. Sure, it's not like a super all, like KW args in Python or something. Right. So we can now return an infinite scroll position at place and use negative. It's false on this one. So by default, by default, the scroll control that we're going to use, the scroll control we're going to use is going to create a positive one, flying one, and then let's just make the stateful this for simplicity, and then we'll do a limit expose to manage that. It's good citizens. Make final controller. Expose a bit nicely. Give those listeners. Now we'll pass that controller over to scrollable. All right, so now we're going to pass that over. We'll get rid of our positive. And we should be able to get the parameters of our positive and use them to build the negative one. So can we get the physics from that? Let's use always scroll physics. Context is the state. That we already had that. That's correct. Initial pixels is going to be negative. The current pixels. That makes sense. And then negative false pixels. Sounds about right. Let me see what I've got in the last one. That should do the job. All right, let's change that to the position. All right. Yay! Okay, so now we go negative infinity and positive infinity. Now, if we get rid of our translate, negative, positive, negative, positive. And this could definitely be done better, but the positions only last anyway for a small period of time. So, and where's my list item? Get rid of that fraction size box. Okay, so we have 1, 0, -1, +1, and it's center aligned on the screen. Okay, that's interesting. That's because that's counting down, that's counting up. So we actually don't want 0.5, what was 0.25, right? If my brain serves me correctly. And let's find out. Ooh, 7.5. Okay, so zeros, is that centered? That's not centered, is it? My ratios are not right, but close enough. So zeros in the center, positive going down, negative going up. And obviously, this could just be what you can then do is calculate based on. This is actually a good question. I'll answer that in a second. But the point here is that this number, this index that we've got, that we're passing to our outside builder, you would then just treat that index as, you would say 0 is a certain date, like now. So that'd be the current month. And each time it goes back, you're just negating that number off the current month to give you the month for that calendar that you're displaying. I'm assuming they're like month calendars or something. I think there is a calendar widget. I don't think so. We have one built in. The date picker. Which is calendar widget we can display. Why not? It's got to be if it's got picker, right? Let's have a look. Maybe not. Do you know what? I don't remember. Let's have a look. Calendar on date, or I feel like calendar date picker is just the pop-up like thing, right? With displays a grid of days in a given month. All right, that doesn't sound too bad. If it wants to open, show date picker. Can we just use the bit that displays the dates, not the picker bit? That would be nice. Month picker. It's private. And ignoring all this keyboard stuff because I don't want to do that. I suppose you could actually put the picker in there. You can choose any month and display it on the screen. Let's do that. So we're saying candidate picker, and it's initial date, first date, last date. Oh, because it has its own controls, which we don't want. Date picker mode, day, year. No, yeah, I thought so, Mike. I seem to remember you can't do that. It'd be nice though if there was, right? Oh, there's an issue for it. Of course, there's an issue for it. Let's just have a quick look in here and just see, is there something that we can bring out of here? So month picker state. Let me have a quick look. I'm kind of curious. Blah, 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 blah. Page. How is it displaying date picker for a specific month? Add months, add months to month date. So kind of want that, right? And then first date can be as yes now. So now index. Oh, look, lovely. Now we have a month. Date picker. What else? Here we go. Yeah. Okay, so day headers. Handy. Sure. Narrow weekdays. Blah 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 blah. So this is building a table, is it? Okay. First day offset. Days in month. These sound very helpful utilities. And loops round -1 base day of something. Okay. Adds those widgets in. Box decorations, blah, 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 blah. And it makes a grid view in clamp scroll physics. I mean, sure, it works. I mean, a table would also work. Since we know how many widgets and we want them to, let's just see if we can drop this in there, right? I don't know. Let's just see. It can only not work. So if let's put it inside the item itself. So here, if I list item, work inside here. So rather than having a number in the middle, our this question came up, which is how do you remove listeners? Maybe see if I can make the screen bigger as well. Yeah, that might be better. It's only me. How do you remove listeners added as anonymous closure? You can't. It's the answer to that. What you actually need to do is name it. So that's why I was trying to say the behavior right now is not added. This is not good. So this can't be removed. The only way to do this is to have a reference to it. So you can do like a function, right? So you can have like void listener, right? Now I've got a named function. Now I can add listener, and I can also remove listener, right? Because it now has a reference that I can reuse. Okay? You can obviously this is again each time this build function is called, it's adding another listener, create a new one. It's not going to work, right? But it's sufficient for the example at least. The deal here is that this that you would create this outside or have this as a function in your class, and then do that. And again, this is all about context. So in this situation, I'll create a new widget, a private internal. We can do this in a second. If you want to create a private internal widget instead of builder, and that would achieve the same goal as this, but then allow us to add or remove a listener, maintain the infinite, this negative scroll position as a private member. That would be the correct way of approaching the problem. Anyway, back to our calendars, since we spoke about calendars. So we've got a month here. We look to the date time picker, and this loops around to build the days using this lovely while loop based on these numbers here. If it's less than 1, it uses a blank. Otherwise, the data build is based on year, month, day. Okay, cool. So theory goes, if we chuck something like this in here, should be halfway there. So I'm not going to worry about big headers. And so this wants items as a list, which makes sense. So final day items equals list, and inside that list we have int day equal to minus day offset. Our day offset is less than days in a month. Day plus plus. And then we can do our if statement and say if day is less than 1, and we'll just add a empty size box. So now invert this and say if it's greater than. I will do less than, rather than having a hanging. And then our widget that we want to put here. We can now say day and month. This return, and it wants now. What was the delegate? Day pick a grid delegate. Oh, I went for a custom one. This is the grid regular tile layout. Hello. Why do I feel like I've never seen that before? No, I have seen that before. I have seen that before, but I've never had to use it until now. Right, we're just going to copy that. Entire class. They pick a row height, 42. Max pick a row count, something. And let's just bring in math. Oops. Right. Let's see. Where were we? Right. So now let's now off. I just thought of a widget. I just thought of a little class I want in that would be really cool to build in Flutter. A date time now. That's a like listen. That will rebuild your widget when, let's say, a minute elapses, or the nearest minute, or the nearest hour, and so on, so that you can have live dates and times changing. Anyway, now.year. Month. Day offset. First day offset. I guess that's based on this date. So it's probably more like date, right? Year, date, months. localizations, material localizations, context. This is where it gets the month, the page, the info. And also, what locale you're on and so on. Anyway, don't matter. Right. So now we've done all that. We have like year and month should actually be. Let's bring that out. So final year. Yeah. Data build. This is the day. Sure. Okay, and then we want an instance of this in there, and yes, we want a box decoration they used in their one box decoration. That one's decorate box, sorry. Box. With the decoration, the border. Sure, let's leave it at that and see how far we go. And then the contents is going to be a text, I guess, with the day to. Well, I guess we don't care about the date exactly. We really just care what the day number is? Question mark. Day text. Right. All right. I made a lot of changes. Hey, look at that. That looks cool. Cool. That's not a bad. That's not bad going, Not bad at all. So obviously, we can make that better. But now, if we put in, I guess, above the, where are we? Above the grid view, right in the column, and we can put the localizations dot format. Come on. Here. Sure. Now. No, it would be now. It would be backdate. Right. Oh dear, that didn't go well. That's because I'm an idiot. We can actually do shrink wrap. I really like grid view use for this. I mean, lays things out in a grid, sure, but it's really meant as a scrolling widget. It has a lot of logic and behavior in there for that. We should just have like a grid widget, right? That does the laying out in a grid. I mean, that's a table. I mean, I could use it. To be honest, I could just use a table. Right. What was it in here? Yeah, size. Font size. Now. Oh, interesting. That's interesting. I'm off by 1. I'm off. That's what the bug is. So, for example, that first one's missing an entire row, which it shouldn't. No, there's not missing. Yeah, so sorry, it's what Christian just said here. There's weekdays missing between months. So the original code, I noticed this when looking at that original code. If I can go back to it, I want to go back to it. Where's that original code? Oh, I'm gonna have to go hunt it down, aren't I? Hang on, let me just see if I can navigate there. Come on, nearly there. Sorry, everyone. Right, nearly there. I'm just going back through my history here. Here we go. So when this builds up the list, what it's actually doing is a bit sneaky. It does a day plus plus at the beginning before day is evaluated. So the loop that I have, the day value is added to at the end, which is fine. We just need to do this as a starting value plus one, right? So we start one ahead from where we should be. Looping ends up being the same, but now it should be correct, right? No, there's a day missing in between. So the question is, what went wrong? Can't start from 0, so less than that, fine. Date offset. -1. I don't know. Let's just see where we're going. I'm There's definitely an off by 1 error here. Whatever that off by 1 error is. I mean, that's why let's just get rid of that off the screen. Big deal if it's not removed. Less than days a month, less than or equal to days a month. Oh, you think we're going 1 extra? I should have just looked at the calendar, right? Right, because we increment to the end and not the beginning now. So does that mean this is right or this is right? I mean, yeah, April starts on the 1st, but was that a Monday? So look, April the 1st was a Saturday. Interesting. So what is wrong with this picture? Well, at least they're lining up now, so I mean that's a good step forward, right? Let's get rid of these colors. I've gone off these colors. They're too Larry. And then now borders. That's better. And then where are we? That looks a little bit bad, doesn't it? Okay, so somehow we're lining up on this, but we're not lining up on it. Let's have a look. Day items, day header. Let's see. What did this do in the original? First day of week. Whilst true. I do not like that. I guess that works. I mean, there's an explanation of it, right? So is this? Oh, hang on. Is this making that? This is just making the day headers, right? Yeah, Sunday to Monday, whatever, right? So it shouldn't matter if they're not in there for what we're displaying, but just out of bring it in and say, where's our list? Stick it at the top. Header style is a text. Sure. Let's put that up here and say. Oh, text medium or something. Medium. Maybe not. Body large. I magnify this for the screen, right? It's interesting that it says Sunday is first. That's because for those that don't know, in the UK, it's weekdays start on a Monday. So I am going to filter locale and see if it fixes it. Oh. So something else is going on there, which I cannot be bothered looking at right now. But what did we forget? What was it? Oh, April. It's fixed it. Wait, what? First. Oh, no, it wasn't a Saturday, wasn't it? What we're talking about. So we fixed it. Well, something for the viewer to look into, because honestly, we're running really late on the show now. I hope everyone enjoyed that. I'm going to go post this up online. Are there any final questions before we call it a day? Yeah, just to say this is infinite, right? So we can just keep going way we're back in history. Also, I mean, we're treating these are all the same physical size, right? We use an aspect ratio, but of course, then we can calculate like a pixel offset and jump to a particular month based on that as well. But yeah, we just keep going and going and going. I'll post this up on the gist. In fact, I'll do that now. That's just weird. I need to give me 1 second, and I'll justify it. That's a new word I invented. I need a Mr. MIT license, so you can all use it in your commercial products if you so wish. Minus the code I got. I should prove at some parts copyright Chrome license, I guess. Something like that. I'm sure they won't mind some way. Maybe I'll put a little line in the sand at the bottom. Say it's pasted. Yeah, so the bit above that is fine. So I'm just going to quickly grab the license for that material. You have to abide by all these things. Below, sorry, I know you can't see this. Put the license in there for the other bit. Right, what should we call this? Infinite calendar. How's that? I'm so creative in my naming. Right, just and call it infinite calendar. This is false. Of false. 3. Okay. And link is in the chat. I'll bring that up on stream. That's there it is. If you want to be able to copy that, I guess that's screen cap it or something. Right. I think that's it then. Thank you all for joining. Hopefully you enjoyed the live coding, and I think it's sometime next week. It's just me left. All right then. Well, have a good one, and I'll see you then. If I can find that fun stop button. Yeah. Bye.